it to the High Council here on World Class Bullshitters. I'm your host, Jeff Hicks, and with me tonight are my two wonderful co-hosts. First off, all the way from the Rippaverse, you know him, you love him. Say hello to Andy Andrew. Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, he's muted on the StreamYard side of things.
Wow, how about that? I was double muted. Let's just do it again. Hi. Hello. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Thank you for being here, High Council Chat. You guys are the greatest fans in the world, and we appreciate you being here every single Tuesday night. We got a great show lined up for y'all, so hail to y'all. Hail to these other fine gentlemen here, and let's have a great show.
And next up, and definitely last but not least, say hello to the man from the Great White North, by way of somewhere else maybe, the Script Doctor.
Hey, how's it going? Happy to be here this evening. Yeah, still in North, but next week I'll be in sunny yet dystopic California.
You are right about the dystopia that is modern-day California. You've spent time there. I used to live there. We have people in the chat that currently live in that state of confusion.
I lived there for over 20 years.
Yeah, I forgot. You escaped that place. You escaped from, well, I escaped from L.A. You escaped from, what, Northern California?
I was in the Bay Area.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, you're in a happier, saner location. Life keeps moving up for everybody. So, hail to everybody that is joining us in the chat. We have guys like Dirty D Senpai, Clone Geek, Scott D 1969. Hail to Jason Evangelista, Enrique Vasquez, Kevin Flynn, Leighton Swallow, and a whole lot more, including Swift -1, who says, "You obviously mean nachos." Yes, folks, we're talking about the N-word tonight. Nachos. No, we're talking about that dreaded N-word that everyone hates, nostalgia. And over the last couple of days, it has become blatantly obvious, if it hadn't already, that nostalgia has dictated so much of entertainment. It's the future of what we're getting from these big companies. And tonight I wanted to talk about maybe some alternatives or what we can do or what we can expect in 2025 moving forward. But before we start that, folks, hit that thumbs up button to let YouTube know that you enjoy this content and join us every Tuesday night. Now, last night, folks, I gave you guys a bonus stream about the Skeleton Crew, and I also dropped a little video.
Do we really count that as a bonus?
It is bonus content. It was. Here's the thing, though. It really wasn't all Skeleton Crew. The audience kept showing up, and we went from, like, you know, a couple hundred to about 450, and it kept moving up. And as I tried to go off the air, but then more people kept
They wouldn't
up.
let you leave.
Yeah. My rule is if we have more people watching every time I look at the clock, that means we're going to keep on rolling. So, folks, if you want to hear that very long stream that turned out to be 3 hours, it's just me. It was a good evening pop culture. And here we are right now.
Amazing.
It was fun, man. I'm not talking about the show. I'm talking about the stream with everybody. But, like, I bit the bullet. I watched the Skeleton Crew. It's just 80s, the television show. It's like E.T. and Poltergeist and Stranger Things and the Explorers and the Goonies. But the kids are Star Wars kids.
Yeah, I mean, one of the saving graces I'd say to it is that John Watts is a pretty solid director. I mean, he got performances out of those kids that was way more convincing than the twins, quote unquote twins from The Acolyte. Like, they were horrible, those little children. Not them personally, just their performances that were captured did not help their career. But I mean, these kids, they've got the magic jelly, so to speak. They got the sparkle, but I don't know how well they're going to be able to sustain that, given the fact that the creative team behind the Skeleton Crew is not the sharpest in the drawer for Star Wars.
Absolutely not. It's a weird show to watch because I agree with you. The kids aren't giving bad performances. They're much better than The Acolyte. It's not as stilted or janky. It was just kind of weird for me to see, like, 1980s America, but in the Star Wars universe. So
yeah,
it was a little jarring.
It also was kind of jarring when the dad notices that his kid is filthy and then he missed his assessment, and he doesn't even think to ask further, dig more questions into why are you filthy? Like, you should have gotten from point A, which is home, to point B, which is school, via the bus. There's no reason for you to be filthy. It's like, well, there's a story there. And that felt to me like disingenuous writing, because it's now saying, oh, this dad doesn't really care about his kid, even though he's displayed things previously in the brief moments that he's there that would say he cares about his kid. It's like if you know that your kid was washed and cleaned and went off to school, and then you get a call to leave work to go see your kid, and he's covered in filth, and you're not thinking like, what the heck happened to you, and then just want to dwell on that for a moment because that is outside of the norm. In addition to the norm of you also missed school, like something happened. You need to know that as a responsible parent, and he just like washed it up. It's like I gotta get back to work. It's like I'm not believing you, man.
No, I noted that too, but the only pass I'll give that is they address that this planet is like a mystery planet. People don't think it's real. People don't realize it. And then I'm like, it's kind of weird. The first thought I had, script, was, why did the rebels save the galaxy and then set up this kind of a planet? Like, this is kind of messed up that these robots kind of have this weird authoritarian rule over this idyllic planet. But then you find out there might be a little more under the surface. So at least that is kind of like giving me something to hang my hat on. But I am with you there because I hate in writing, and this is something I don't do in my own writing, and I don't like to see it in other writing. It's when something could be quickly addressed, but the character is too ignorant or stubborn to just say something or listen for literally 2 seconds, and then we wouldn't have the extra drama. We could focus on something else. But that's not the case here.
Yeah, because the ideal aspect of it would be you have to distract the concerning party with something else that's slightly more urgent. So, for instance, let's just say the dad is there and he's asking, "Why are you filthy?" And then the teacher comes out and says, "This boy has been insubordinate." And he's like, "Okay, I got to deal with the teacher now." And now he can't listen to his kid because the teacher is giving him information. So now you get these what's called the cross wires of signals. So the kid's telling the truth, but the dad isn't able to get full attention while the teacher is saying, your kid's a bad egg. And so now you put the dad on the defensive, like, well, he's not a bad egg. He's dealing with the change. We don't have a mom anymore. She's passed away or what have you. He's going through a period, a spell. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm on a single income now. And, there's all these, you throw in the chaotic element so that you can justify why the dad can't give his kid full attention and how the context of this boy's life in school is actually kind of working more against who he is as a character as opposed to bolstering him up. But instead, all they did was, "But Dad, I have this story." "I don't want to hear it, son." It's like, no, that's the writer's hand coming through the page and coming through the screen to basically slap the audience and say, don't pay attention to the logic of the situation. I just want this particular outcome to be there, and I'm not going to work hard enough to get to it.
I agree with that. I don't necessarily want to see more of the dad. But now, the season's going to be split between him and other people looking for these kids. It's kind of like what you didn't get out of the Goonies. Because in the Goonies, when those kids were on the adventure, the parents don't show up until the end at the beach.
They don't even know that the kids are gone yet.
Yeah. And I also like that we didn't ever cut back to Mikey's annoying-ass mom or Rosalita or the dad or anybody's parents going, "Oh, where are my children?" Because nowadays, if they made that movie, it'd be like in Stranger Things, where you got to have a 5-hour segue with Winona Ryder and David Harbour. It's like, can we just get to the end of this story and not keep cutting to the parents? I get it. They were the only ones that were actually alive in the 80s, but I want to watch something, especially in genre entertainment, that's very direct and straightforward, less meandering, because I feel like a lot of these shows only have what they have for the episode count, and they don't necessarily put stuff in the show that keeps people on edge, essentially.
Yeah, like with Dick Donner and doing Goonies, there's got to be some deleted scenes on there. I haven't seen all of them, but I know that they shot one where the parents go to the sheriff, which is like hours after you just talked to Chunk about the whole, the Fratellis are there, and the parents are like, "Our kids haven't come home," and it's like 11 o'clock. And then that's all you get is like they're just upset with the police, and they say, "Okay, we'll start a search." And then it goes straight into the kids who are following them from the end of the wishing well all the way until they get, into One-Eyed Willie's cave. And then you see them again. It's like, oh, we're now, but I don't think they used it because towards the end you have the police and you already have the parents with them. So you already get the information that, oh, the parents have clearly gone to the cops in the interim when they realize that a night has passed and their kids aren't home. And so you don't need that scene where they go to the police to say that. And it's like, that's called good storytelling. We don't get those things. Like, unfortunately, yeah, to your point, in Stranger Things, they kind of dwell a little bit too much on it because they don't want to they want to actually take a break from the kids because they feel that the audience needs a break. But oddly enough, if you supercharge a couple of scenes in your story, the audience will stick with it all the way until it comes to its completion.
I don't think a lot of people are going to stick with this show until its completion, because I've been reading honestly, dude, I've been reading the room about this show, paying attention to where I'm reading the reviews from, who's saying what, and people are trying to give it a pass because it's a kid's show, and I think the kids are fine. I don't really listen. Last night, folks, I didn't have a bunch of complaints about them. It just, the first episode was kind of boring, and then the second one picks it up. But I do think that this show is going to suffer like the other ones, because so many people are burnt out. No matter where you go on the internet, they're just like, I'm done with this brand. I'm done with this show.
Yeah. And, the shoe's going to drop next a couple episodes when we start seeing the parents to the other two kids, not the alien kid, because we already saw those parents, but like, I know one of the parents, one of the set of parents is like a lesbian couple. And for me at this point, it's like, yeah, I don't care now anymore. It's done. Your shock value, your agenda pushing stuff, it's basically just flying over my head. You're not hitting an impact anymore.
Well, like at this point, it's all to be expected. It's all power for the course, right? At this point, we're like, oh wow, that's a straight couple, right? Or oh wow, that's a male character that isn't getting crapped on and put in his place constantly by a female character. We're long past the point of any of that stuff being shocking or surprising. I don't know why anybody even still, and I guess to be fair, it's only a handful that still do, but why anybody still like reacts like their mind is somehow blown and, putting 8,000 exclamation points and all caps in their tweets and YouTube video titles and stuff like that. It's like, dude, are you, come
Buddy,
on, you're not actually
right here,
surprised,
it's for this.
right? Yeah.
Clicks.
No,
Yeah.
it was a rhetorical question, right? It wasn't me asking. It wasn't me stating I don't know why.
I just wanted to show off my Logitech mouse that I've had for like 6 years. Come on now.
It's a good mouse. But here's the other part too.
I like this Logitech mouse.
This year we've essentially crossed over into the lesbian parents as a cliche now. It has become a cliche now to have, one of the a kid who's probably a little bit snarky, who's got one parent that's like huge and overachiever, and then the reveal is, oh, that other parent, they're in a same-sex relationship. It's like, yeah,
it's reached broken family Disney levels of cliche. Like Disney doesn't know how to do a family that it's like you have the mom and dad and the kids, and they're all actually still living together under one roof, and it's a happy family. Nope, one of them's dead, or one of them left, or one of them cheated, or whatever. Right? Like that family is broken somehow. Right.
Yeah, but I'd argue you can't really justify like a same-sex marriage with a child as a broken family, because again, you're still getting, two nurturing parents, right? So
but what I'm saying is it's become the same level of cliche with their overuse of it.
Well, it's entered cliche territory. I don't know about the same level though, right? Because one has a different connotation of like, oh, you've got like a broken family or the single dad is a cliche that shows lack of attention and care to the child as a result. Whereas, a two-parent household would be the kid's going to have some attention unless you go to the other route where they're workaholics. Like, for instance, let's say Buffy the Vampire Slayer from the movie, not the TV show, where those parents just don't care about their daughter because they're super wealthy, high class, and so she's basically free to roam or do whatever he wants. Or like Kevin McAllister's parents, right? They're there, but they're workaholics, and they're so wrapped up with their vacation that they forget basically one of the only kids they have, because I think they only have like 2 or 3 in that family, and then everybody else is like cousins, aunts, uncles, what have you. So yeah, like it's a little different, but I mean, let's just put it this way: it's fruit in the basket, but they're not as distinct as apples and oranges. More like apples and pears, in that point.
We're going to read the word of the day in just a minute, Troublezoid. I promise you. But somebody had said we got to remember that this show is for younger audiences. And this is the point I wanted to bring up about this audience and the nostalgia. It's like Hollywood wants to create a nostalgia for a world that these kids have never experienced, and have never experienced people even being nostalgic for that stuff. It's
right.
Like people like Stranger Things, people watch it, but like even me, I'm 36. I didn't grow up in that Goonies was new window, or all of these shows and movies that they're trying to like. I didn't have a Spielberg youth. When I was born, the most recent Spielberg movie would have been The Last Crusade. And so I grew up on Indiana Jones, but like E.T. or even Poltergeist and that stuff that just captures that early 1980s wonderment that is Steven Spielberg, that's even like slightly before my era. And I just keep like scratching my head going, it's for people that are like original Star Wars era fans, but then it's you being protected that it's for children. I don't think kids are watching that era of stuff. It just feels off to me like they don't know what they're doing.
They're doing that for the parents because they know the parents are going to be sitting watching a kids show of a brand they grew up with, and this is their way to kind of acclimate the kids to that
Yeah,
brand.
because most kids these days, like little kids, they're not interested in Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean that's
You got to hook us. You got to hook our generation.
You got to hook us so that we share it with our kids, and the other part too is we have maybe 2 generations of parents that are giving kids iPads and iPhones or screen technology essentially, which has replaced the television, because the television, you could at least sit the kid down and they'd watch something and they'd probably pick up something to learn, because television had, every single story has some sort of lesson or morality to it with its undertone, at least from the 1950s up until the late 90s. Today, the screens are, well, it's TikTok, it's Minecraft, it's streaming. It's not really, it's content over entertainment, and that creates a different type of, that wires the brain differently. So then the kids no longer have an interest in a curiosity. They're clicking on things to just help them get through the day, as opposed to, oh, you watch a television show that poses a question and you're like, oh, you're hooked for the next 20 minutes to see what's going to be the answer of that question. Where content doesn't have or follow that format at all. It's just, we're going to do this. And then, Mr. Beast does some sort of crazy stunt where he drives a train off of a cliff, but he's already teased that he's blown up the train. So you're just waiting for the event to happen. So you already know the ending going into the story of that video. And then you're just kind of waiting it out until you get recommended the next thing, which follows similar format. There's no proper setup, payoff relationship going on here. And when you don't have curiosity in your youth, they don't take interest in culture or stories or things that don't just basically front load the answer right away. So it then feeds into an impatience attitude.
Yeah, I pick up on a lot of this stuff and question, like, what are the impacts or the results of this going to be on people? Because I know it's just entertainment, or I know it's just whatever, but we are a product of what we watch and how we consume things. So there's been a quick shift. It's too early. I can tell you this: when I have a family, I won't be going, "Hey kids, we're watching Star Wars tonight." And if we are, Star Wars is going to be like Dad's movie, where it's like, "Oh, the kids will watch whatever they like, but we only have the old ones in the house." There's no, I don't know. I don't want to pass this on. I don't want to reward Disney, if you will.
Well, I mean, that's what the benefit of physical media is, or starting up your own media servers. Like you hold on to the classics, and you don't get the streaming services, and you just be your own TV programmer for your children. You're like, okay, it's 4:00, you're back from school or what have you. You're going to sit down, you're going to watch some Adam West Batman for a half hour while I go start making dinner, and if they have no other exposure to anything else, you kind of nurture that a little bit.
I'm going to start them with Batman the Animated Series as well, because I guess I just was born in this weird window where these shows actually had like a deeper meaning beyond just being like biff bam pow exciting superheroing. Even the X-Men, that's always been part of the story, but what did X-Men Evolution have that? It just felt like it was a bunch of teeny drama and crap.
Not really. I loathed that show.
Yeah, X-Men, Wolverine and the X-Men was like the saving grace after
Wolverine and the X-Men was so much better.
I keep forgetting that was on. Was it on Nickelodeon or some like weird channel?
I remember. I owned
thought I
the
saw it on
DVD set.
Cartoon Network or something. I can't remember.
Either way, it was a good show. I enjoyed it, and I don't know. We have X-Men '97. We'll talk about that next year when it comes back, because they produced 2 seasons.
They produced 2 seasons. There have been leaks of the types of cameos that are going to be in that season. Oddly enough, one of them ended up being Ben Reilly and not Peter Parker, which gave me a little cringe.
Lame. We got to stop acting like everything from the 90s was awesome.
It was actually quite mixed. A little bit more mixed than the 80s, because the 80s had some good stuff, but they also had some crazy, stupid stuff that was just hysterical. And the 90s had crazy, stupid stuff that was not hysterical. It was just frustrating. And the Clone Saga was a big part of that on the comic circuit.
Dude, on Black Friday, I went and picked up a lot of comic books. And when I was going through the back issues, I was like, thank God I don't have to spend any money on the Clone Saga anymore, because I know I got all those books. But I remember, I didn't read them then. I read them years later when I picked them up for like a quarter each. And I was like, these books are terrible. If I wasn't trying to get every book, I'd throw these away. That's how I feel about most 90s comics. Like, I'm never nostalgic for that era, because like, I get it. A lot of people are nostalgic for the 90s, but a lot of those comics were shit. Even Superman and Batman and some of these other books that have great issues or memorable moments, there are still tons of issues where you're like, what is this? So
It was quite a fascinating surge because quality in art kind of took a big leap between the 80s and the 90s. And the writing was more like a heart monitor. It had its peaks and then it's had its severe valleys. And it just didn't feel... I mean, this might have been the period where editorial got far more involved, but it was divisive. I mean, I just couldn't tolerate it. By 2006, I'm like, I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm going back. I'm going to back issues, look for stuff that wasn't so crazy. This whole Bruce Wayne fugitive murder, like, this is a marketing tool. This isn't a story.
Batman's difficult. I love Batman the character, but I'm with you, man. I go back to Bronze Age and Silver Age Batman, and that's kind of it. I'll try to read modern Batman every once in a while, but I find myself going, this is too dumb, or this is dark, or I don't care about the Bat family as much as other people do.
It has a different influence to it. That's why it's got the 80s influence kind of dominating what the character was, or what the character has become. And you're like, well, that's why I kind of like, the charm of the Silver Age, and why I really enjoy the Bronze Age, because the Bronze Age was the first acknowledgement that, our readers have grown up a little bit, so we can like push the edge towards maturity just a tad, but still have fun with the supernatural, like the Gentleman Ghost stories, or the crazy, Catman in his 9 lives cape, and Selena Kyle trying to fight cancer and nearly dying. And it's like, these are cool, dramatic things going on. Or the love interests of Silver St. Cloud and Rupert Thorne's, conniving criminal empire. All those things, you're like, man, those are really cool. And then the 90s kind of made derivatives to that. Well, not as much, but definitely in the early 2000s, you kind of got a section of derivatives to that on the Batman side of things. Spider-Man started to get a little bit better in the late 90s, but
I agree.
That's about as much as I can remember, because again, I did a clean cut of all my titles. And even when I recently went to Toronto last week, and I popped into the Silver Snail, which is a legendary comic shop from the city, and it's all contemporary stuff. Like, they do have a number of drawers for your back your rear end books, your back I'm losing my words today.
Back issue.
But it's all the stuff that's on the shelves, like all their archives, all their omnibuses. It's all stuff from like 2010 to now, just collections. It's like there's nothing classic. If you want to find something classic, you got to really dig for it.
That's the first store I went to, because I love a good deal, and books were either half off or buy one, get one free. And the first store where I got more action figures than I needed, their comic books, I was like, hey, where's your Spider-Man section? Well, I was a little more polite than that. And the guy goes, it's over there, what we got. And they only had stuff from like 2019 on, and I reluctantly bought all those books because I'm back to collecting every issue again, Andrew. Like, it's on.
Oh, so that means you were 2019, so that was all Nick Spencer's run.
Yep, I didn't recognize any of these books or any of these covers. I didn't recognize a lot of the characters either. But then I went over to the other comic book store, and I just bought books from the 70s, and mostly just the 70s, a couple from the 80s. But I don't want to go back to 90s comics. But what I want to do is check in real quick. These are a couple awesome super chats that rolled in. First off, we can start the show officially, folks, because our sponsor, Shrebbles08, is here with the word of the day. And the word of the day is boot. Hot boot time machine. Star boots. The cowboy boots strike back. How Stella got her Christmas boots back. Fistful of boots and Star Wars Episode 10. Ray, get the boots. And real quick, and Mr. DJ Longhair, Das Boot, a Star Wars story.
I would watch that. Not a Disney Star Wars story, but proper Das Boot Star Wars story.
How about give all the people that are currently at Lucasfilm and Disney Da Boot?
I like the way you think, my friend.
Boot Busters.
But real quick, Script, I would love to see, like, Imperials stuck on a Star Destroyer, or Imperials stuck on some ship with something out there, or not even something out there, just, a drama on one small location. We can hear the war, we can hear the fight, but we just don't see it. I'd like that. That's something experimental that I think would be interesting, more than kids running around. Sorry, that was a tangent. Jingle all the boots.
Jingle all the boots. Dude, where's my boot?
Yeah, that's a good one.
You only boot twice.
My left boot.
That's cheating. No, sure, that's a good one.
It is a little cheating, but again, it's,
It's on brand.
It's on brand.
There's something about boot.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Boots.
I'm here for it.
Hot boots.
The last boot.
Clear and Present Boot.
The Wizard of Boot.
Boots of the Caribbean.
Boot Force 1.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Robo Boot. Half man, half boot.
Half man, half. How about no? I got one. You ready? Reboot.
Boo.
Yeah, because it was already a show.
Yes. Fine.
Two show up by that name. Yeah.
You're welcome. I know what I am.
There will be Boot. Scooby Boots, where are you? I like that one. Boot Raker.
A booty snack. What?
So, folks, send your boots in all night long. We got 8 boots in a duffel bag. The Boot Man, Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots. Yeah,
There we
somebody's
go.
thinking like me.
The Boots
I
of
like cats,
Thunder.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, Boots of Thunder is a good one.
Oh, clear and present boot.
From Russia with Boots.
License to boot.
I like that one, actually. I watched
Boot Raker.
I watched some Bond movies this week. Octopussy is terrible still. So you ever read a review or somebody's take on a movie and you're like, oh man, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm late to the party. Let me go back and watch this great tense spy thriller. It was garbage. I've already talked about it. I was like, why am I staying up till 1 a.m. to watch this movie? I need sleep. I guess I needed to torture myself, but I did it. We got Boots Like Jaws over on Rumble. Folks, tell us in the chat where you're watching. Are you watching on Rumble, X, Facebook, or here on YouTube? Now, our friend John Thomas with another generous super chat. Thank you, John. Schoolhouse Rock, Conjunction Junction. What's your function? Hooking up sentence and phrases all day. Long, Zero, my hero. Can you skate a figure 8? I'm a Bill. Yes, I'm only a Bill. Available on DVD.
Cool.
I like Schoolhouse Rock. We all grew up with Schoolhouse Rock?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I also like School of Rock. Even though I
With
can't
Jack Black?
stand Jack Black in most other things, I really do enjoy that movie. I was the right age when it came out.
I'm the same age as you. I like that movie. I bought it on DVD.
Yeah, it's just a fun movie. What's today's lesson? Kick some ass.
I do realize every month that The Legend of the Rent was way hardcore, so I kind of feel that scene right there.
Dude, you're not kidding.
No. But we would watch that in school. I went to a school where we had music class, and if the teacher didn't have a song to sing or some dumb crap like that, she wasn't dumb, she was okay. We watched Schoolhouse Rock because it taught you stuff, and it was kind of fun.
Nice.
Also, Dion and his now wife used to sing School of Rock songs to each other in the college cafeterias. So, folks,
Really?
They would do that 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. They would sing that to each other, and I'm just like, okay, whatever.
I mean, y'all are nerds, but that's kind of adorable.
Well, they've been married for 12 years at this point, so they
Good
clearly
on
nerded out
them.
together. Oh yeah, they got kids, they're happy. But folks, if you want to troll Dion about the School of Rock or Schoolhouse Rock, not School of Rock, well, you know what to do this Thursday. But yeah, the fact that show's available on DVD is I am a physical media guy. You guys know this. And I was watching an interesting video about the Internet Archive and how it keeps getting attacked, and they're in the middle of a big lawsuit with the RIAA.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a physical copy of stuff, you just won't have it in the future. So pick up your books, pick up your physical media. I mean, if you're going to read comics, make sure you check out stealingsolo.com. But make sure you guys are getting all your favorite stuff. Because, for example, I know we're not a wrestling show, so I'm not going to really talk about wrestling. But like, this is hard to find. This story of WrestleMania, the full version.
Oh gosh,
Glad I bought the physical media version. I don't have to rely on streaming.
I remember
Same
that.
with anything. But thank you, John Thomas. We have another one from John who says, Jeff, that show on a Star Destroyer sounds like the Battles, was it B5
Babylon
episode?
5.
Oh,
Yeah.
Babylon 5. Sorry, that followed the two maintenance guys around. Babylon 5 is better than the Next Generation. I'm going to agree with you because I don't love the Next Generation.
No,
How do you
I
guys
would
feel
say,
about that?
yeah, no, I would tend to agree because the Next Generation, better marketed, better effects, better budget, but its episodes were peak and valley because I think classic Star Trek is far superior, and then followed by Deep Space Nine, and then Babylon 5 is amazing because, well, it just follows story beats of human history in a sci-fi setting, and it's very intricate, and it's very much one voice. And yeah, J. Michael Straczynski, knocked it out of the park, and the fact that they were able to pull off, I think, 5 seasons on a shoestring budget for that many years, with Bruce Boxleitner coming in to save the day and kicking ass in that show because he was awesome. Tron.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it. I will say this though, Babylon 5 has some fantastic story consistencies all the way through, but there are some next gen episodes that really do stand out and be like, yeah, Babylon 5 would never reach that peak. Like season 4 premiere of Family in TNG is amazing because it hits really well and really hard.
The episode I always think of is when Picard gets assimilated by the Borg. That's kind of the only Next Generation episode I think of every time I think of that
That's
show.
the best of both worlds. Season 3 season finale with season 4 premiere being the part 2 of that. Good episode. But the one right after that, the family one, where they're back on Earth and Picard meets his nephew for the first time and sees a life that he could have had and realizes how much he actually cares for his family. Oh man, and then Worf has a great story arc there as well. Wesley not so much, but Wesley sucks.
He does.
Oh yeah,
quick
Wesley's
aside.
trash. He should have died.
One quick aside I'll say is my buddy once called a strip club his Worf to ask what time they opened and closed. And it was the funniest thing I've ever experienced. So it was just too nerdy. Oh yeah, it was. He would do that shit all the time because he can do a spot on impression. Was it Michael Dorn?
Michael Dorn, yeah.
He and this guy Joel is very, very white, so he doesn't even look like you think he would look, but he can do the voice spot on.
That's funny.
We got Man of Action. I just wanted to point out that you got, was that classic G.I. Joe with the beard. So shout out to you for all the toys icons out there. Folks, this week we have My Life in Toy. Well, Ollie's is coming out on Saturday, and usually My Life in Toys drops on Saturday, but do you guys want both this week? Press 1 in the chat to let me know. It's a really great episode of My Life in Toys. It's epic. It's got everything, and it's got some good insight, too, because I talked to these people about Hasbro and the problems they have with not buying Hasbro merchandise directly from the stores. So, yeah, everything we say about the Ollie's videos is true in the toy community proper. Everybody feels that way about the company. So, not only is My Life in Toys going to show you cool locations, you'll learn a little bit of something in a cool way. All right, so we got more people on Rumble watching. Cool. Shout out to the Californian Condor. So, in terms of this, we're not really going to go too much more into the Skeleton Crew. I said what I had to say about it. But, with the Snow White stuff coming out, and I'm not even into that controversy, it just seems pointless to keep going back and drudging up old things. Now we have Snow White live action. There's Aladdin live action. There's a new Lion King live action again. When does the reliance on the past stop? Is it ever going to stop because they don't want to take risks? Or do you think there's a window of time where they go, screw it, we only can make new stuff now?
Well, that's a good question because I was on Versus yesterday, and the majority of the panel were big believers that we need to get cocaine back in Hollywood. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but cocaine hasn't left Hollywood.
Oh.
The users of cocaine have changed, and the users of cocaine love the 1980s. And that's why we're getting those remakes of the 1980s. I mean, unfortunately, I read earlier today that they're planning to remake a classic that doesn't need to be remade called Forbidden Planet, which is from the 1950s.
Really?
Yes. I'm like, you don't need to. It's what it is. You keep like you leave it alone. I don't know how true that is going to be, and at the end of the day, because I know that there's talks about it, but it's because the difference being is that the people that are in Hollywood right now, they don't have an ego about them that's creatively driven. What they have is basically they're like, I wish I could go back to this time syndrome, which is a nostalgic based syndrome. And because of that, we are not going to have them interested in taking risks on creating anything new because they are afraid of what is around the corner. And when you're afraid of what's around the corner, what do? You retreat back to your home or you retreat back to your security blanket, whatever it is. And what is the highlight of a lot of these, 40 plus year old executives that are in control right now? Man, those movies in the 80s are great. If only we could make movies like that again. Well, you know what? Let's remake those movies. Failing to realize, like, you don't remake the movies that you loved, especially the ones that did well. You remake the movies that stunk, that you have a charm for.
That, or what you can do if you want to actually be original. And that's a point that you've made quite a few times on the show, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. Stop remaking stuff that was already good. People already love it. How about you see if you can turn this trash into a diamond, or at least something resembling it, right? Maybe it's cubic zirconium, which is still a diamond, but it's artificial and all that. But like, let's try and make something out of something that failed the first time. Now, yes, there's going to be the apprehension with the studio of wanting to fund something like that. It's like, well, it did poorly the first time. Why do we have any reason to believe it'll do better this time? So there's certainly some of that apprehension there, I'm sure. But I personally would like those people who are so nostalgic for either particular franchises or particular characters or particular genres, particular periods of time. Be creative. Take a look at those things that you love, that other people probably love as well, because it's not a vacuum. You're not the only person on the planet that loves stuff from the 80s. Plenty of people do. How about you take a look at all the different things that came from that era or that are similar to this particular character or type of story or whatnot. Figure out what are the things that people most enjoy and you most enjoy about that. Put together a little amalgamation of that, depending on what actually works well together, and create something new but familiar. Then the use of nostalgia doesn't become, hey, this thing that you love, here's this thing again. It's the same exact thing, like literally the same thing. It's the same characters, the same story, just about beat for beat. We just have better, CGI on, or whatever.
Or better technology to it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, take a look at Star Wars. It's a mix of Flash Gordon and Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Because Lucas couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon.
Right.
And we got a Flash Gordon, which was a fantastically awesome movie. Cheesy as hell.
Sure.
Fantastically awesome.
Definitely.
Sure, absolutely. But then you get to actually present something new. Like if I'm going to tell a story, right? If I'm going to create something, whether it's a book or a movie or something, and I want to do it based on something that I know I enjoy, I'm not just going to say, oh, well, I want to basically just do a rewrite beat for beat of this other thing that I already enjoy. No, I'm going to look at things that are similar. I'm going to take the pieces that I think would work well together and create something new but familiar out of it. Because we do that all the time with things when we're recommending stuff to family and friends and coworkers. They're like, we go, hey, I know you like this thing. You might like this thing too, because it's similar, right? It has similarities. You might also like this thing, right? And we do that so frequently in our daily lives when it comes to entertainment. Creatives just need to do the same thing and create something freaking new.
And also, too, if you're going to be like influenced by the 1980s, instead of remaking it, why not just bring those sensibilities to a story? Like, first off, the 80s were very traditional stories. Good.
Yep.
Well, look, every decade has different stuff. Don't act like every movie's the one type. But let's use Die Hard for an example, or Lethal Weapon. They're not trying to...
Die Hard and Lethal Weapon are a new interpretation of the love story. because Die Hard is motivated mostly by John McClane trying to rekindle his relationship with his wife over Christmas, and these jerk-offs criminals have gotten in the way. Lethal Weapon is Martin Riggs grieving over the loss of his wife after many years and not having much purpose, but then finding a friendship with his new partner in Roger Murtaugh, and them becoming essentially brothers of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the action aspect of it is really just kind of the backdrop to this story. That was kind of revolutionary in the 80s because it was one of the few times when you'd see an action film that women were more interested in seeing than the guys, because the women picked up that camaraderie way quicker than the guys did. Like I remember my uncle, who was only like, a decade older than me, loving Lethal Weapon as a kid when I was a kid. And then my aunt playing stuff like, yeah, I love it. That friendship between Riggs and Murtaugh, like, it's so palpable. He's like, what friendship? They're just cops. He's like, no, there's something deeper there. And then he gets that realization. You're like, oh.
Oh yeah, it's family. I love the end when he goes in for Christmas, and then that's why Lethal Weapon 2 is my favorite one, because you have the relationship established. The only thing I was going to say though is nowadays we can't have like, they keep trying to put these like modern flourishes on these 80s movies. It's like, we'll use Ghostbusters. I hate to bring it up because Wokebusters isn't about this, but like the female Ghostbusters, it's Ghostbusters but with women. No, like, don't do that crap. If you're gonna make, like, for example, I like, even though it wasn't the world's greatest movie, I like how when they brought Rambo up, was it Rambo 5? I like Rambo 4, but the point is, it's as raw and bloody and action-packed as it used to be. Mm-hmm. I don't like when they either try to sanitize stuff or try to change it for a modern audience or do those things with these remakes of 80s movies. Like, if you're going to do it, if you want to make an 80s style movie, give us like some crazy one-man army action movie like a John Wick. That's why that shit works. Yeah. That's a new franchise that's essentially just a one-man army story. When you try to reinvent the wheel, it doesn't work. And I think that's where a lot of these people that are nostalgic for the stuff of their childhood, it's great that you're nostalgic for the stuff of your childhood, but also, like, do it justice. Don't put your spin on it. Do it justice to where it'll stand up as great as one of the originals. Like, I'll give Beverly Hills Cop 4 that credit. It stands up next to Part 2. It can be its own action movie. No more of this crap.
Well, what it is it shows that those people that are creating these things that are remakes of that prior era, they don't actually understand what it was about those things that made them work. They know that they like them. They might have some semblance of an idea of why they like them, or they might like aspects of them, but they don't actually understand the inner workings of it and what made it work, what made it hit and land with audiences.
And a lot of that stuff is really difficult to discern too, because again, how often are you able to get like a coherent answer when you do like a broad poll to a huge audience demographic? That's something that's useful, because you get so many different varying opinions, and trying to sift through all that to find the commonalities is really, really hard. And social media seems to be a shortcut to that, but it also ends up, muddying the waters a lot, because all you need is one person with, say, $1,000 to burn to hire a bot farm to skew in any direction that they think is favorable to their own opinion. And then that becomes polluted data on the side of the production. So they have no clue they're getting a bad interpretation of what it is they want to go for. The other part too is that you have a whole section of the industry that doesn't know how to make movies or why movies are made. They understand them as like a product as opposed to an art form. And the risk with the art form is the fact that you are investing in it knowing that there's a higher probability it's not going to pay off at all. But you're doing it because you have something else motivating you to do it. And that motivation is kind of been filtered out of Hollywood over the last 20 years or so. We also have a huge education gap. We have a buddy of mine, Robert Meyer Burnett. He read an article where he found out that most Ivy League kids don't like to read complete books. I mean, we had the Cliff Notes when we were going to school, and we used that basically as a cramming session, or if we finished reading the book, we wanted a quick retainer of it, we'd grab the Cliff Notes, and then we'd be able to refresh ourselves within a shorter period of time of the book we just read, maybe a month earlier. Today, it's like Cliff Notes is too long for them to read and process. And you're like, their brains are rotted. And then these are the people that are, through their connections that they make at school, through their education, are getting put into various parts of industry and making decisions that are completely uninformed of the sense of character from the individual, and they're more done on data points that are most likely not authentic. And that's what we have a lot in Hollywood. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I thought, David Zaslav was good for Warner Brothers, because he came from television. He was cutthroat there. As soon as it didn't work, they got one chance to fix it. If they couldn't, it was axed, and they spent that money on something else. Then he gets to Warner Brothers with the Discovery merger. The first thing he does is he goes to the people that are experts in filmmaking. He says, "Teach me about this business." And he's been learning it for the last 2.5 years. It's not something you can cram in 2.5 years, but I mean, his studio is doing well. I mean, their debt is far lower than anything Disney has, and their output, with exceptions to the Joker, has been pretty phenomenal. All things considered, they fire sold the end of the DCEU. They got rid of the CW, which is no longer a debt incurring property under them. And now they're launching. They've got Superman coming out next year, and it looks like it's intimidating enough for Marvel to actually say Fantastic Four is going to come out maybe a few weeks later, and not going to be battling on the weekend. So
I would love for Superman to just lay out the Fantastic Four. It's no anger towards Marvel, but I'm really pulling for Superman for historic reasons. I know that's silly.
Well, I give a hell of a lot more of a crap about Superman and the success of a Superman movie, a good Superman movie, something we haven't had in decades, certainly over a Fantastic Four film. And I'm sure there are plenty of, older comic book fans out there that adore the Fantastic Four. I'm not among y'all. I'm sorry. No disrespect. It was never my jam. I like Johnny Storm as a character, and that's about it.
It really wasn't good in our lifetime, because we're born after the John Byrne run. Mm-hmm. And I know some people are going to say this guy and that guy, but let's talk about like these certain characters, and I say this a lot. They were popular for a certain generation. So like Wolverine and Deadpool, everybody grew up in the 90s with Wolverine being the man. Oh my God, he's back. That's why that movie did that much money. Yep. Same thing with Spider-Man. He's been relevant forever since he pretty much came out.
He's been relevant since the 60s.
Yeah, and he always will be, because he is a fully covered superhero that anyone can see themselves in, and he looks cool, and he's fun and easy to get into. Who doesn't want to imagine swinging from a giant rope, essentially, jumping through the air? Like, if you can't fly, that's a pretty cool way to get around.
It's a cool alternative.
And I will say this: if Superman does perform very well, and the metric for Superman to perform very well is going to be as close to the billion as possible, ideally crossing the billion, given the investment in the levity of what is in store. Mm-hmm. But if the rumors are true, and I tend to think they are, that Superman is a very hopeful, positive, strong type of character who's endearing and inspirational.
You could have just said he was Superman.
Well, yeah, but you have to clarify it these days, because they've had a decade of Superman where he hasn't been that. Other studios are going to follow that trail, which is then just going to put me in a great position, because I've got a reputation in Hollywood as being one of the few dozen writers out there that have been saying we need inspirational role models in our stories. And you either hop on, you have to start making them like right now, so that they'll be ready, as closely as possible to the post-release of Superman. Yeah. Because if it does hit, people are going to love it. People are going to want to see it. Yeah, it's going to set the tone. It's going to do
the same way that The Dark Knight did when that came out.
To a degree. But The Dark Knight also had a bad influence, because after The Dark Knight, it's like, we need to get Superman like this. And it's like, no, you don't. you don't. I mean, when Superman...
No, it doesn't need to spread into characters and stories that aren't inherently like that. What I mean is we've had so many years now of certain characters being hyper influenced by The Dark Knight and the success of The Dark Knight. And so now it's like, okay, how about you can still do those stories, but do them with the characters where it's appropriate. Do it with the characters where it makes sense for the tonality of that character. Now, there seems to be, because here's the thing. There are plenty of MCU films that came out where they were, kind of campy-ish. They'd have some lighthearted moments, but it was more that Joss Whedon, snarky humor and one-liner stuff. That's not the same as having a lighthearted, hopeful character and hopeful story. And so those have their place as well, but it seems like studios and just writers in general have been so averse to doing genuinely hopeful, hope instilling, lighthearted characters and stories. People do still want that.
They do. They also want it to be treated with a certain level of earnestness. And I will say this, like, a lot of people I've seen on social media, a lot of people have really liked, I guess, the series finale of Superman and Lois, but in it wasn't earnest. It was very much high school level happy endings. Didn't feel authentic. It's like the team involved. It's like the team involved knew that Superman has to be a hopeful, positive character, and instead of giving us what that actually is, it's a very childlike interpretation of hopeful, inspirational character. It's like Superman, he grows old. His 2 boys have kids. He has 9 grandkids, and he's so happy, and everything's so happy. And he got a dog, and he's just sitting around, and he's loving his. It's just really, it's like a 7-year-old saying, and then this happens, and then this happens, and there's sunsets, and there's sunrises, and then he gets to see Lois in heaven, and then it's all good. And you're like, this is insulting to the intelligence of any person over the age of 14.
I can't get behind superhero stuff on a TV budget anymore, and so I never watched that show, and nor did I ever comment on it because I didn't want to come off as angry or hateful or whatever. But that wasn't Superman to me. He didn't look like Superman. I guess
Tyler Hoechlin. I heard he did a good job in terms of his performance, but yeah. I will say, like, when I first saw him cast in the role, I'm like, dude, you don't look like.
He's got a penguin nose.
Yeah, he has a penguin nose. He's a ripped guy, but he's very slenderly ripped to the point where they had to get their Halloween costume, which it looks exactly like a Halloween costume. It doesn't look like a Superman suit. They had to get the Halloween costume and had to stuff it with extra muscles to make him look big and imposing. But doesn't work when in the next shot you have him shirtless nursing a wound from a kryptonite with Lois there helping him out, and you're like, he's clearly lost like 7 inches on each bicep.
Right. Yeah.
That's why.
And just the shape of his head, was incorrect to me. Like it just nothing about him. Like no disrespect to the actor. Again, I heard pretty much nothing but good things in terms of his performance. It's just like you don't look the part to me still.
Not quite, but he has the charm of Superman. He has the earnestness of Superman. Like you throw him as a voice of a cartoon, he'd nail it easily, no problem. You'd have no doubts. But like again, it's a CW show, and it has CW things, and they did a huge about face because they're like the guy who they ended up naming John Henry Irons was originally a black Lex Luthor from another dimension, and as soon as controversy started to mill around that, they changed it and they just said, no, he's John Henry Irons from another universe who happened to have married Lois in that under the universe and hates Superman but likes him now. It's really convoluted and garbage.
Seems unnecessarily convoluted.
It was a really poor show for a lot of reasons, and then the few points that they ended up doing really well, just did not last long enough. There's this one scene where like Clark is the parental assistant coach of the football team, and he's carrying a cooler with his son, and he's pretending that it's heavy, and he's having fun with his son, saying, should I make it like more heavy or less heavy? So, and he's playing around with them. It's like, oh, super heavy. He's like making it almost scrape the ground. And he's like jokingly, like he's doing a dad thing. And you're like, oh, that's cool. Superman would do that. He'd have fun with that if his kid knows he has powers. But those moments were so few and far between that you just don't feel like you got a guy that is, because Superman becomes also a super dad because he was raised by super parents, and that's Mom, Pa, Kent. And it's like you got to show us those moments, and unfortunately, the writers just did not have anything in their catalog that made them qualified to be like, oh, we're dealing with a bunch of teenage kids going through superpowers. How would Superman, as a father as a man who's gone through this, who's had parents who's gone through this as well, how would he address the situation? And it's the most basic bitch stuff you've ever seen, and it doesn't work. And you're thinking, this is Superman. He's got like the photographic memory of sorts, especially of his powers. He should know intimately everything that they're going through and help guide them to the right path. And they can definitely put up resistance, but the lesson of every episode is that the resistance they put up leads to a failure for them to accept and understand that they can trust their father when it comes to these situations. And they never did any of that. It was just a lot of Smallville whiny little bitch stuff, which bothered me all the time, because it's like, oh, you're Clark Kent and you're upset that Lana's not giving you attention. Well, who cares? If you can get her attention for being your normal self, she's not worth your time. Move on. You've got superpowers.
Yeah, the angst, even in Spider-Man, I can only handle so much angst. So, but when they put that on the big screen or the TV screen, my eyes just kind of glaze over. I'm like, okay, I'm not basic where I want to just watch superheroing, but I kind of want to watch the reason that I like these characters, because anybody can make a high school. Like, if I wanted to watch high school drama, I could watch Degrassi. If I want to see a guy fly around the planet backwards to reverse time, I watch Superman. I don't really need to see... Like, I thought as a kid, at least, this is just based on a lot of memory, but Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman, or The New Adventures of Superman, he was in every episode doing something as Superman. Yeah. Even if it was just for a couple of minutes on that one, backlot where he'd come in and stop a guy or stop a bomb or fly away. It was exciting to watch that show even as a kid.
Yeah, they squeezed a lot out of that budget. And I mean, I will say this, that show, even though Dean Cain was not the strongest actor for it, he got to say some of the best lines as Clark Kent and Superman in live action. And Terry Hatcher also. Like, I'm sorry, you had 10 years of Smallville, and there's nothing quotable about that show at all. At all. Like in Superman and Lois and Clark, you have a great line where Clark Kent says to Lois, Superman is what I do, Clark Kent is who I am. And that tells you everything you need to know about the character.
Well, there he is on screen. I thought I'd pull him up real quick for everybody. Yeah, he looks the same, even without the glasses, but that's my favorite TV Superman. Let's take a quick pause. I just want to give attention to the audience right now. Thank you very much to Wartooth88, who says, SCP show or proper game? Which would you rather have? Do you guys know what SCP show is?
Oh, that initialism is not ringing any bells right now. Sorry, man.
Hey, Wartooth, send us in another regular message, and I will gladly answer that, because I don't want to
keep my eye on the chat.
Leave you hanging. I just don't know what that stands for. Thank you, Andrew.
SCP.
John Thomas, thank you very much for your super chat. So, will Iger's live actions be as remembered as the same way as Iger's direct-to-video movies in the same way? Oh, you mean like Lion King 2 or those
Little
movies
Mermaid
that nobody
2 through 5 or something?
Did they do that many?
They did a lot.
I knew there was a second one, and then there was the cartoon. Like
there was a couple of Peter Pans.
The TV animated series.
There's a number of 101 Dalmatian films.
So I knew that there were 2 of those. Aside from Aladdin, and I think I did know that there was a third Cinderella, but I never saw anything beyond the first one. I think only Aladdin I actually have seen all of the, unless they did more than 3.
Well, I've only ever seen the covers of them when I was working at Blockbuster Video in high school. So like I remember just putting them on the kids shelf and then going, why are there so many sequels to this cartoon?
I saw Lion King 1 and 2. For Aladdin, yes. Yeah. King of Thieves was definitely better than, was it Return of Jafar?
Yeah. A TV episode, essentially?
Basically, yeah.
But
Lion King sequels, not.
All the theatrical ones still hold up and look great, but when you turn on these other ones, because when I first got Disney Plus, I'm like, oh, I'll watch Aladdin. Still great. 10 out of 10. And then I went to look at some of these other ones. I'm like, man, as a kid, I didn't notice the change in animation. But as an adult, I'm just like, well, I'm glad I enjoyed this as a kid, because it's clearly not for me anymore. But that's the one thing I do dislike, that a lot of people are like, well, if it's for kids, it shouldn't be, you shouldn't critique it or watch it. It's like, Aladdin was for kids, but it was such a good movie that even as an adult, I want to watch it again, buy it, do all this stuff. Isn't that kind of the point, is to create something that's so memorable that it burns itself into your psyche and you still watch it as an adult? Like,
yeah, because you're not writing for kids, you're writing for the family, which means parents are going to be there. And if you can't give the parents something to enjoy in the film as well, what's the point? Then you've got Caillou, and Caillou is horrible.
Where did Caillou hurt you? You brought this up, I think, last week.
Go onto YouTube, see if you can get a clip of Caillou. Just watch the 10 seconds. You'll understand.
Yeah, I've seen. There's a stand-up comedy bit about Caillou and how he looks like a testicle or a cancer patient, and I was just
Yes,
I couldn't stop
you don't
laughing.
know which one it is. It's just such an insulting to your intelligence children's show. Went on way too long. I remember, I remember literally picking up my goddaughter and taking her away from her grandparents' house when I stopped by just to drop off some food and stuff for them because they were busy babysitting the kid and they couldn't go out and they were old. I swung by, dropped off stuff, and my goddaughter's watching Caillou and she's got like tears on her face. and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm watching it for the rest of the day. You cannot. I know the channel is for kids TV, but this is not appropriate for kids. And I just picked her up and I just took her to my place until her folks came home, and picked her up from my place because it's a really creepy show. And I've met some of the writers of that show. They are not people I'd ever want near children.
No,
not for like any sort of predatory thing, just because they would brainwash them to be nutballs.
Oh, hey, that's more than enough of a reason.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Hey, we got the Soskas in the chat. What's up, ladies? How you doing? Let's see. We had an answer to that question from Wartooth. It's secure, contain, protect. Creepypasta.
Is that an anime? I'm assuming.
I'm assuming it is. I guess I'll go with the show since I don't know what a game would entail. But if it's as long as it's not an RPG or text-based game, I'm pretty willing to play any video game. You know what? Screw it. I'll take a proper game. Give me something that's going to have some meat on it, and any game that's an actual challenge. I don't like cinematic, story-driven games where I sit there and watch a 45-minute
Play Resident Evil on Inferno difficulty.
Oh, dude, I've been playing Resident Evil 4 again. That game is the shit.
I freaking love that game so much.
Top 5 game for me. Probably number 5. GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, Mega Man X.
Which
Resident
one?
Evil 4. Just the first one.
Okay. All right.
That's my favorite Super Nintendo game, hands down. Later on tonight, folks, we'll talk about the 30th anniversary of PlayStation. I want to hear some of your favorite memories and games. But Wartooth, I'll always err on the side of games. Screw it. Let's have some fun in life. Life's too short to be boring. Xavier DeGott says, do you guys like Kick-Ass 1 or Deadpool 1 more? I'll go last.
I've never actually seen either of the Kick-Ass films. So by default, that means Deadpool 1 because I was crying laughing in the theater watching that with my dad. So I had a good enough time watching it in the theaters that it wins over something that I have not seen at all.
Deadpool 1 is slightly better. Because just because it knows what it's doing. Kick-Ass was very different from the comic books. It did have Lauren Fonseca, who I think is a very beautiful and underrated actress. Yep. Nick Cage was awesome in that movie as well as Big Daddy. But yes, I have to throw it to Deadpool. Deadpool is a far more simpler, easier to follow story, more empathetic type of character. Mm-hmm. No knocks against Aaron Taylor Johnson, but I'm sorry, he's not a leading man. No matter how many times they try, take a look at Craven. Those first 8 minutes of nothing. I go with Deadpool.
Same. The first Deadpool is special. As much as I don't go on about the second one being anything, because I just didn't.
The second one's like Kick-Ass.
I hate that second film, but it's all because of the kid. Really, the kid ruined the film. He single-handedly ruined that film for me.
I was actually thinking about that today because there was a stupid ad for Mint Mobile with Ryan Reynolds, and I went, you know what? I really didn't like Deadpool 2. I was like making lunch, and I went on this stupid tangent in my head. So
should have gone live.
You know what ruined Deadpool 2? The fat kid. The fat kid ruined.
That's what
Deadpool.
I'm talking about. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about. He also damn near ruined the third Godzilla movie in the MonsterVerse because he's awful in that too.
Yeah.
He's in Godzilla vs. Kong. He's completely useless. All he does is whine and bitch and moan. He's just like he was in Deadpool 2. And I wanted him to die, just like I wanted in Deadpool 2.
Do you guys remember comedic actor Anthony Anderson?
Yep.
So that's what they were trying to do with that young kid because he was big and he's obnoxious. They thought, oh, he could be like the next Anthony Anderson. No, because Anthony Anderson actually has talent and charm and is fun to watch. This kid is horrible in every single way.
He can't act.
They're just
Or if he
something
can,
about him.
they've given no reason to believe it.
Right.
He just plays the same whiny little twit in every single movie that I've seen him in, which, to be fair, is only twice, but I don't intentionally want it to go beyond that.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's a male version of Rebel Wilson without any comedy.
Oh,
he
You know,
looked just like
before
her.
Rebel
Oh,
became,
God.
got healthy.
oh God!
You see it, don't you?
You made it worse. Stop! Don't do that.
He wasn't
Don't
in
do
Deadpool
that.
3, was he? Like
No.
in the opening? Okay, I didn't think he was at that. It gets just to show you what a waste it was. It's like, hey, he derails this.
I
and
still
Deadpool
haven't seen it.
Well, the thing, it's not even a spoiler because it's in the trailer. The movie,
No, it's okay. You don't have to worry
The
about
part when he
spoilers.
has the wig on and all that crap in the beginning of the movie, or the trailer, that's the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And they show all the people from his past, and I'm like, was that kid in there? Because it just goes to reaffirm that kid was pointless.
He wasn't in there, but the one guy from the first movie who Ryan Reynolds says you're not getting any lines again is in that, and every single time he says one line, and Ryan Reynolds' character reminds him, you're not supposed to be speaking. Like that's the running.
The beard guy.
That's kind of
right?
funny.
The beard guy, yeah,
That's kind of funny.
yeah.
I mean, look, those movies are funny, and who sent that in? It was Xavier to God. That's why I picked Deadpool 1. I own Deadpool 1 on Blu-ray. I don't have Kick-Ass, neither the book nor the movie, so maybe one day I'll get it for $5.
I do have the Blu-ray of the first Deadpool.
I have the
that.
second one, but it was a gift, so
Oh.
I figured.
Yeah, you get a pass on that.
Yeah. I don't have the third one, though, because I'm not spending $65 on a 4K Steelbook. Nope, I won't do it.
$65.
It ruins the market because all the people that were antsy for Deadpool ran out and bought the disc, and now they're charging that price for Willow and something else. Disney is jacking up the home media price to try to get people to not buy physical media. They want you to buy Disney Plus in perpetuity. So
This is 5 films, all in 4K. This is a special collected edition. It has extra bonus discs for all the featurettes and all the makings of and all that cool stuff. I think I paid like $80 for this. Same with this. Godzilla -1. Now, granted, this is only one film. Okay, no, technically that's not true. It's 2 films because it has the minus color one as well. This, I think I also paid like $85 for, but this is a collector's edition. It's got a whole bunch of cool crap, right? Like, just a steelbook? One
just
film?
a Steelbook.
Hell no.
There's no such thing as hype that, like, look, if they were to release James Bond and they were $65 a disc, nope, I'm done. I love 007, but that's a no for me, dog. I will
Get
not spend
out
that
of
kind money.
here. $65 for one film that's just the only special thing about the release is that it's a steelbook. Sorry. Like, steelbooks are cool and all. I'll consider, if it's a cool looking one, paying $10 extra, but $65? No. Sorry. That is not happening.
John Thomas, thank you very much. It says Flash, savior of the universe, best soundtrack ever. Love that movie. Princess Aurora, Shawing. YouTube censors the actual Wayne's World term. Well, we salute her. Shawing. That's a great movie, by the way. That's the best movie of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched Flash Gordon in years, but folks, this week on the show, Troll Dion for Halloween 2010. I was Marty McFly, his wife was Tommy Wiseau, and Dion was Flash Gordon, and he put on a blonde wig, and he ordered a t-shirt from Amazon, but it didn't show up for Halloween. It actually showed up on November 1st. So I made Dion a Flash Gordon t-shirt. I took a white t-shirt and a red Sharpie, and I colored in the armband and the neckband, and then I wrote Flash on there as close as I could. And the best part, we're drinking, it gets hot, he sweats, and the shirt just starts to leak on him, and it turns pink as we're partying. I got pictures of it. I'll
That's
show it on the show
amazing.
on
That's
Thursday if
awesome.
somebody reminds me.
That's amazing.
Shout out to Adam AJ says, hi, a first time catching a stream. Well, join us every week, but thank you for joining us tonight. I've seen some people say the streams are criminally underrated. Folks, I agree. We want 1,000 people watching. We have almost 200,000. We just jumped up to the 199,000 mark the other day. So things are moving.
Woo!
And I ain't giving up. We're going to hit that 200K and we're going to celebrate huge, like big, big, big. But folks, keep telling people to come hang out with us. Adam, thank you for joining us tonight. And yeah, his wife was Tommy Lasorda. Did I say Tommy Lasorda? I meant Tommy Wiseau. Sorry.
No, you said Wiseau.
Oh, okay.
I'm positive you said Wiseau. At least that's what I heard.
Wiseau, yeah.
Okay.
However, Tommy Lasorda.
So now I'm double.
Have a costume for one.
Well, now I'm freaking second guessing myself. I was like, I heard Wiseau. Is that what he actually said?
Well, at the 1 hour, 10-minute mark, I'll go. I'm just joking. Tommy Lasorda would be a much better. You know what? I want to dress up as Tommy Lasorda's baseball. I'll be an actual Sega Genesis box. That's what I'll dress up as for Halloween next year, folks. Old snap case, the shell kind. Those are the best.
Oh, man.
Even though I'm not the biggest Seth MacFarlane fan, I do love how he brought Sam Jones into the first Ted. It was like a big thing.
Yeah.
And they ended up meeting him at the end of the movie. That was pretty funny.
No, he's even in the sequel for a little bit, too, so...
I don't remember the sequel. All I remember is that I didn't like it as much as the first one, and that the TV show is probably the best thing they did with all of Ted.
Yeah, the TV show on Hulu was really good. They've got a second season. One of my buddies was actually telling me that Hulu seems to be the only streaming service that actually picks up a bunch of the comedies that have actually been put out over the last few years that nobody has seen, and some of them are pretty spicy. So I've had him like put a list for me, so I'm going to be seeing what I can watch over the holidays, and maybe do some talks about it, because we on this channel and on other channels has talked about how there's certain comedies that just wouldn't be made today, and yet I think it's just more so they'd be made but not advertised, and I want to see if that holds true, because if this list proves that they've got some edgy comedies that are pushing boundaries but nobody's seeing them, which I suspect might be more so the case than the former. It just means that the market for where you can find things that make you laugh is going to be harder to access than previously, and that has more goes back again to the worst mistake that Hollywood ever made, which is they decided that they're not going to invest in domestic films anymore. Everything's got to be a global box office, and comedy is your domestic market moneymaker. They're cheap to make, they bring in a lot of money. And where are they, right? Like, you don't see them in theaters anymore, and you should. And the closest thing you get to a comedy, sadly, is an MCU film, because of the quips and the jokes that are peppered throughout that, and they're not that good.
I just had that thought today because I'm listening to a book. I finished my Caddyshack book, and as I'm working on the next comic, I got one on SNL, which, opinions aside of SNL, we're talking classic comedy here. And yeah, I was thinking about that too. It's like, I don't want to watch Deadpool to be the comedy of the year. I want to watch, I don't really want to watch Soul Man again, but Soul Man is something that you probably couldn't make by today's standards. Well,
actually, you could. The thing is, the audience is there. It's, do they, it's not really the studios that are totally afraid of it. It's the trade's response and criticisms of the announcement of it. If they said, we are going to make a raunchy teen sex comedy, for certain that Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Rolling Stone are going to be like, haven't we grown out of this phase? How desperate and how terrible and how misogynistic is it to have these comedy films which are exploiting young women and young men to do, that's what they're going to do. And that's the only reason I think, outside the global market part, that Hollywood has decided, okay, we're going to pull back because we just don't want this. Again, we talked about that one reporter from Variety. He's like, is this the gayest thing ever? Like, that's what all he talks about. He literally tipped the hat and finally broke the glass to let other people realize that, it's really not the talent that's going out of their way to accuse or attack fans. It's these journalists that are setting them up to say things that can be interpreted as such so that they can get people outraged and clicked over on their articles. And then you have a negative connotation that goes on to there. The only one right now, I've been digging into seeing the types of questions Rachel Zegler is being asked to get her set up for this point. It's really hard because most of them are pretty normal. But then you go on to her Instagram and her TikToks or wherever the other part stuff, and she's just vomiting out stupid things. It's like, okay, so this woman is clearly a crazy person at this point right now. She's doing it to herself, but then when you take a look at Daisy Ridley and how someone tried to pin her to basically say that all Star Wars fans are bad, and her initial
Right.
response was, no, 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 no. Like, you have to remember, she put all those no's. She says, I think there are some people out there that just don't like to see a woman in power, and I wouldn't equate those with Star Wars fans. And that's different because there's definitely going to be people that don't want women in power. Are they Star Wars fans? Probably not, because they liked Leia. You know, they liked Padme Amidala.
Yeah, Star Wars fans like Padme, Star Wars fans like Leia, Star Wars fans like Mara Jade, Star Wars fans like all sorts of female characters.
Exactly. Like, you kind of have to cut through the crap that is going out there. It all goes back down to like the Ewan McGregor thing. When you take a transcript of what he said, he basically said, if you're bullying someone like Moses Ingram on the color of her skin, you're no Star Wars fan in my eyes. And guess what? You will not find a single Star Wars fan that ever criticized her for those things. They criticized her character, and he did not talk to them. But guess what? There's a whole slew of people on the internet that thought, oh, they're talking about Star Wars fans. No. You want them to be talking about Star Wars fans because the media has tricked you into thinking that.
Well, not just that, but you want them to be talking about Star Wars fans because that helps you.
Yes.
It's self-congratulatory. It's selfishness. I mean, you look at, there are actors out there that have kind of like navigated those types of questions pretty well, I'd say. Like, I think Henry Cavill has done it very well.
Yeah, Henry
when
Cavill
those types of questions have been posed to him.
Simon Pegg, not so much.
Gal Gadot did as well when somebody tried posing one of those types of questions to her, and she actually pushed back against it far more directly than I would have expected, because like Henry Cavill actually pretty deftly like navigated around it, right? And was not vague, but he was very professional with it,
well,
right?
He distinguished between toxic fans and passionate fans.
Yeah,
and that's what he managed to pull off.
Exactly. And Gal Gadot pretty much went like just straight against the question. I was like, all right, hell yeah.
Quentin Tarantino did the same thing. I reject the premise of your question about Margot Robbie not having enough lines. It's like she had exactly the amount of lines she needed for the story. And Margot was like, yeah, I agree. Like, again, you got to kind of cut through the crap to figure out, like, well, who's the enemy? So you got to take a look. Okay, who wrote the article? What type of questions do they post in the article with regards to response? Let's take a look at the person who wrote this article's history. What are they doing? What's their narrative? Oh, then you also have to remember, actors are so focused on acting, they rarely have the experience and the wit to navigate someone that's plotting against them in order to exploit. It's a tabloid mentality.
And I think it's a combination of that, because I do think you're right there. However, I think that another piece of it is that they understand the environment that they're in, and they know that if they say, in a lot of cases, if they say the wrong thing, right? And wrong meaning like wrong in terms of what the message,
the establishment,
the established message and talking points are, right? So they know if they don't like lean into this and go against it, all of a sudden that could mean the axe for them, right? Or it could mean a whole lot of a headache for them, and this is their livelihood. Right?
Exactly, because the media dictates their popularity. So if the trades are like, okay, we're going to spend, X amount of dollars talking about Scarlett Johansson and her entry back, her emergence in the Jurassic World series, we basically see the agents are going to look at that, the studios are going to look at that and say, okay, Scarlett Johansson's a hot number. However, whenever she's a movie that's not Marvel related, she doesn't really bring in box office. And guess what? Her leading movie that was Marvel, even though it was day and date, still didn't bring in a whole lot of money. Like, she's a hot chick, but she's not the type that people want to see for other movies that are not something more enticing.
I like Scarlett a lot. I loved her as Nat. I think I see what you're saying. I feel like there's a little more to the conversation when it comes to the Black Widow film than just her, but I'm sure she being the lead is probably a part of it. But I feel like there would have been a major turnout for that film had it been released at the proper time.
If it was released post Avengers or before Avengers, yes.
Like
everybody would have picked up on it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, because there was a window of time where there were a couple of really good slots where you could have slotted in that film, and it would have done money. It would have done major money because all the guys that were the MCU fans wanted to go see it. Right. I would have went and saw it. because I liked Nat a lot as Black Widow. Since we have the Saskas in the chat, shoot, they should have directed a freaking Black Widow film and just do no restraints play or something akin to that. Because I'll watch Nat light pedos on fire all day. That's great. But yeah, to your point, there is a conversation to be had when it comes to, some actors and actresses not bringing in, the numbers to the box office, and that's probably going to be leveraged in the trades. Because I think this is where we're going with this when that next Jurassic World film comes out. And if it underperforms, that's going to be their go-to talking point, right? Like, oh, well, misogynistic Jurassic Park fans didn't turn out to see it just because it had a female lead or something like that. And
that's going to be
that might be their angle, and that's the other part too. That very angle is also full.
We
of
loved Ellie in the original, right? I love Bryce Dallas Howard in the Jurassic World films, but I've also always kind of had a little bit of a crush on Bryce Dallas Howard.
Everybody is just fodder to me in Jurassic Park. Unless it's Jeff Goldblum, they can get eaten. I don't care.
I know. I like
wanna watch
Sam Neill a
Jeff
lot
Goldblum
too.
dinosaur.
Sam Neill was pretty good in that.
Oh yeah, Sam Neill's great. Alan Grant's great. Ian Malcolm is my favorite character in that franchise.
But the other thing you have to also take a look at is like Scarlett Johansson's career has mostly been independent films, dramas, and romantic comedies. And she was only a name in that circuit. But guess what? The dramas are reduced significantly, and there aren't really any romantic comedies being propped up for studio releases anymore. So what is left for her to do? Well, she's got to start going into the action stuff, because luckily she got the breakout role in Iron Man 2 to do that. That got her onto more of the men's radar of side of things, but she still does her art house films. She did that Asteroid City, or
Asteroid City, yeah.
it was it Asteroid City or Crater City or something like that.
You're right. The Wes Anderson one.
The Wes Anderson film, yeah, which is a quirky comedy. Did not perform well. Just.
To her credit, now there are issues with this movie, but ScarJo actually did a pretty good job in the Ghost in the Shell film.
Yeah, that's a fine movie.
Like the movie itself isn't stellar, but there are a lot of things that I liked about it, and I was like, okay, so as somebody who grew up with the anime, I'm here for it. Like, I had a good time.
I saw it in theaters. I don't regret it. It wasn't as fun as Alita Battle Angel, but it was still pretty solid. And I used to watch anything Scarlett Johansson was in when I was younger because I liked her. Now I haven't seen most of the movies she's in because I just don't follow actors anymore. But her Black Widow movie, that movie was garbage. Come on now. She broke the guy's nose, or broke her own nose so she wouldn't smell the Pharoah.
Oh gosh,
it was 6 years too late, and the wrong creative team behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you. Andrew, you think Saskas would do a good job? I don't dispute that. I think Brad Bird at that point in time, say pre-Avengers, post-Avengers, would have been absolutely perfect for it, because he just got he's proven his mettle with regards to spy and infiltration stories with The Incredibles, and it's oh, you can mix that with superheroes. He's got the met for it, and God, oddly enough, Bryce Dallas Howard would have also directed the hell out of a good Black Widow film. Because again, if you want to find someone that has that experience,
well, she has some directing chops too. So
yeah, I mean, she grew up around it. She's a third generation Hollywood.
We talked about this last week. She directed some of the best episodes of Mandalorian.
And you know what? She's probably going to have the best episodes of Skeleton Crew because she directed them. And what's terrible is that those are sadly the only type of gigs she's getting where she should be getting some feature films, proper stuff. But
yeah, Hollywood and the trades all want strong, empowered female writers and directors. But
you got Charmaine Chinoy doing a Ray movie. It's you got Bryce Dallas Howard in the offices sticking them on Disney Plus when she could probably actually find and do something on the film. But you probably know why they're not going to give her the film, because her dad's Ron Howard, and if he says, I don't think this is the right story to tell, I want to go this way, they're going to be well, we can't really say no to Bryce, because number one, Ron Howard is a Lucas best friend. History with Lucasfilm and Spielberg. Number two, they still owe Ron a favor for coming in and doing Solo last minute.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So
It's like they don't want to burn that bridge. And Ron is already doing retirement because he made an effort to try and create a pipeline to get a new blood into Hollywood. And I don't know who was involved below him that was making the selection process, but they screwed the pooch on that significantly. And as a result, like we're back to basics. But
you would think that somebody of his pedigree and his talent, you'd be able to trust, like, okay, he's got the eye for it. Like he does. He's going to be able to pick out, like, okay, this person actually has that next kind of it factor when it comes to a directorial eye.
Well, not just directorial. Like he did this thing that I reviewed for a while called Imagine Impact, and it was basically like if you're a screenwriter kind of starting out, or you got a couple years under your belt, and you feel like the industry's kind of ignoring you, pitch us some stuff here. We're going to pay you to develop, and we're going to create a deal with Imagine Studios to try and get your thing off the ground. And when I saw the people that they were selecting, it was one half of it were people that had been working in the industry for 30 years who struggled, and then others were just DEI selects. And you're like, you are literally picking the people that shouldn't be here at all. You should be getting the people that, you know, have made a wave in some or haven't quite, you know, on the merit of the work. You should be picking them on the merit of the work that they have, as slim as it is. But if you're like bringing in writers that have been working for 30 years and they got 4 credits under their belt, there's a reason that they only have 4 credits. Like they're probably con artists, or they're probably just really bad and they only know some people. And then if you're bringing in people that have no experience, but they look like of a demographic that is being currently exploited at the expense of their own potential, then you're not doing them the service either. And I saw some really talented guys that, you know, applied to it. I was tempted to do it because it was a free application, but it's like, I really don't want to, you know, go that route, because I was doing decently well on my side at that point. It's like I would be, if I did it, I might be taking a job from someone potentially that wants a start out. And holy crap, when I saw some of the pitches that went through and they got rejected with no coverage, even though coverage was supposed to be provided, you're like, yeah, whoever's in charge of this, they're clearly not following whatever mandate it is, that what Ron Howard used to do when he would find acting talent, or he'd find a great writer and work with them on something. It's not a factor anymore. And I don't know. And I don't even think it was Brian Grazer doing anything at all. I think it was like 2 tiers down from them, but it was just horrible to see, because he was investing like millions of dollars in this program, and it was just basically subsidizing terrible people.
Script, you have a question, by the way. Script, can a live action 40K be made properly nowadays?
If it's a series, yeah, but 40K is obsessively convoluted. Like, it's not something easy to set up and introduce, because its original medium is basically you learn one thing at a time over a long period of time. Whereas something like, you know, a television show or a feature film, you have to kind of condense it within your limited time frame. And there's so much to a 40K, Warhammer 40K, that it would be hard to grasp unless it was a television show. That you'd have to isolate it out to something very, very simple, just to get your normie audience to understand what it is before you start building out and expanding it. Because 40K is like, it picks and reinterprets and borrows from everything, and then just kind of smashes it into its own crazy world. And its fandom is, well, I've only ever seen the fandom online. I've never seen it in person. Even when I've gone to some conventions and I find a couple of 40K tables, there's not really a line around there. And I found them after the fact because I had no idea what the heck it was. I'm just like, oh, there's some weird robot things over there, or some sort of weird, like, you know, steampunk and space looking things, or at least that's how it looked like at first. And then I'd ask people about some booths and stuff, like, oh yeah, that's the 40K thing. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's basically what
It's
it
one
was.
of those franchises that feels like the lore is so just kind of like thick that it's super difficult to present in a very mainstream normie medium like
At
a
first, I think
feature
so, yeah.
film. Like there needs to be some sort of a introductory setup for it, because otherwise there's just so much to wade through. And that's me speaking completely out of ignorance in terms of the franchise itself, because I don't know nothing
Yeah,
about
'cause
it. I'm a D&D guy, but I never waded into 40K, but I know that 40K's lore, from what I understand, makes Warcrafts look silly.
possibly, like, one of the things that I kind of picked up on is that, StarCraft, the Blizzard video game, pulls from Warhammer, but it takes only
Yeah.
a sliver of it. And I'm like, well, if you can do, like, say, the StarCraft approach, where you take a sliver of it and you do a concise story about it, maybe you can build up to it.
Mhm.
But number one, will that appease your core audience, which would be your fans, which would be telling friends to go watch it?
Right.
Or will it avert them because you're holding back so much information that they want to see translated in live action or cartoon or whatever?
Yeah.
It's a tough cookie to crack. I think it faces the same problem that Foundation has, and Foundation on Apple is like, that first season is horrible. The second season is kind of better, but not by much, and it's just they're overloading it with tons of information that you just don't get a chance to really digest it and appreciate it. So
I had to look up what it was because I didn't even realize it existed. But it's got Lee Pace in it, so.
it's got Lee Pace, but it's written by David S. Goyer, who
Oh, never mind.
should not even be allowed near pen, paper, or computer. And I've listened to a few of his interviews, and I'm like, I know you're lying, because I was there. Like, I didn't see you, but I was there, and I know that's not what happened. So,
Have you guys ever watched *Halt and Catch Fire*? I thought that was a pretty good show with Lee Pace.
No,
that
can't
sounds
say
so
that I have.
familiar.
It's like the story of Apple computers, essentially. It's
Oh,
like a
yeah.
fictionalized version
That
of
was
that.
not bad. Yeah.
I got into it years ago. It would be considered woke by today's standards, so we'd never review it on the channel. But, I watched it when I got sick once, and then I was hooked, and I had to finish the series. So, real quick, though, to talk about the Warhammer stuff before we read our next super chat. We used to get messages about this thing called, like, Astartes or Asartes or something like that. And it was like these series of CG cartoons, essentially, and they were cool to watch. And there's a video game for one of the Warhammers, on Xbox that we looked at. And so it's a cool concept. From my point of view, Wartooth, I would watch a lot of big robots and stuff like that. Because I know, what is it? There's like orcs or something weird in the Warhammer 40K. Is that the one where they think the magic works and that's why it works? Because they believe in it? You'll have to correct me, but I'd be willing to give it a shot. I think there's a problem with a lot of science fiction. And maybe down the road I'll fix this with one of my stories, but, and I know this is going back, but like, Star Wars is science fantasy, I know, but sometimes you just need a direct story. That's where a lot of sci-fi loses me, is when you have to spend like hours talking about the hierarchy of this planet and then showing me all these stories and crap. Maybe I just want to see a nice spacefaring adventure where we hop from planets and we see cool stuff, we see cool fights, and we don't keep building in a slow pace. I would like to see a sci-fi series just
you can
kind
tell
of go
a
that route
one-off
again.
self-contained story in sci-fi. It requires discipline to do so. I think a lot of people who want to wade into sci-fi as a genre by default kind of want to try and build out a whole freaking universe. And when you're doing science fiction, that's a little more literal than building out, a universe of a different genre, right? And so I think a lot of times those writers, they're either not talented enough for it, or not experienced enough for it, or further, they get lost in the weeds, and they lose track and lose focus and lose sight of what should be prioritized, which is tell a good story first. You could do some world building in the process, but don't let that be at the expense of your audience being able to understand the story that you're wanting to tell.
Yeah, it's like leaping before you look. Like,
Yeah.
Again, when you watch a movie like the original Star Wars, the world building is such a byproduct of what's happening on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Like, you don't have what Christopher Nolan does, which is Michael Caine sitting down and telling you what's going on.
Yeah.
For 3-4 minutes straight. You don't have something like that. When Obi-Wan is telling the story of Anakin Skywalker to Luke for the first time, it's not about the state of the galaxy. It's about, like, this is a little bit about your father, because we've already seen a scene set up where you want to know about this man, and your uncle has said, no, I told you to forget it, or something of that nature. It's like, oh, we're building a friendship here. We have a story with a point. Sometimes, I mean, I read tons of scripts every week, and a lot of the ones that are in the sci-fi genre usually has some type of monologue speech that tells you this is the context of what the universe is, and these are the relationships we have with these various species. And it's like, show us this, man. Just show us this. And if you can't show us this, then you're thinking more about your world than you are about your characters.
Yeah. Show don't tell is like a baseline guideline when it comes to storytelling, especially if it's a visual medium. A lot of that stuff can be done via just showing it on screen or having your characters act it out. That's not to say that you can't do some telling, but when you do it, it's got to really matter, and it's got to make sense, and don't overuse that and abuse that, because then, you end up with just too much exposition.
Well, use it
You
sparingly.
don't want to fall into that.
Use it sparingly, like Kyle Reese in Terminator, when he's telling what the T-800 actually is.
Yeah.
And it's basically, it's not the clever way he's doing is, like, he's telling her how to survive this thing, but we're learning a little bit more about it overall as a context. She's basically saying it will not stop until you're dead. It's human flesh over top of a metal skeleton, AI, this type of series. They used rubber, it didn't work. But now it's flesh. And it's like, that's the subtext of they learn.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it scary. And you get all that information, and you hold on to that information because it's predicated under, I'm not telling you this just to tell you this. I'm telling you this because if you don't know this, you are going to be killed.
Right. Well, he's saying it's this model.
Well, it's motivated.
They tried this, but then they realized that wasn't actually going to work. It was easy enough to spot. So then they switched to this. They upgrade to this. That's what he was telling her. Or rather, what he was saying. Those were the words. But what he was telling her is that, just what you said, they learn. They're smart. They're adaptive. And if you don't actually get your stuff straight, you will die. It will kill you.
Yeah, will not stop until you are dead. Like, that's a catchy line.
Yeah.
And we have those writers out there that do that, but we don't see them in the stuff that is pushed hardest publicly for people to see. Like, I mean, I turned off John Wick 4 after the first 2 minutes because it just felt like I wasn't being shown anything. I was just being told stuff. You
didn't get to the staircase that never ends?
The never-ending staircase. I've seen the Google clip or the GIF of it. It's just.
I unapologetically love that movie. I don't even care.
I think the concept of him fighting a blind guy is cool. And I've skipped to see some of those scenes.
Oh well, that was what's his name? Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen. Yeah, dude.
I love Donnie Yen. Yeah.
He kicked so much ass in that movie. He was stellar.
Even Donnie Yen could make a Disney Star Wars movie interesting, at least his parts. So,
yeah, that's
well.
True.
I mean, he was in Tiger Cage, right? One of the Tiger Cages back in the day.
I don't.
Because I know they made 3 of them, and they're all very different films.
Not sure.
I love martial arts movies, but I don't know every actor's filmography. I've seen most of Jackie Chan's work. I've seen every Bruce Lee film because there's 4 of them, so it's not really a stretch to see all those movies. But I do love them. The Raid, Redemption, all that shit. That's pretty much, if anyone's like, what's the genre that you could just blindly
The Raid
watch?
has some crazy cinematography.
Martial arts. Oh, dude, that staircase. Wait, is the staircase the second one? I'm thinking of the first
staircase
one.
Is the second one. The first one is the fight in that one room where the guy gets the fluorescent bulb tube stuck in his neck in Cologne. Yeah. Like, that was pretty cool.
That whole movie, like, I am not like a violence junkie. I don't watch movies for the gore porn, but in an action movie, when they're like kicking ass and stuff like that,
when they're creative with it too.
Oh yeah,
like if they're super creative with it, man, that could. It hits different when they're super creative with it. I think that's one of the reasons why I always loved Jackie Chan's stuff as a kid, because the and as an adult, shoot, like he was super creative with the choreography, right? Utilizing whatever the heck it was around him, and it was just it's fun that way.
Have
It's
you seen
super
Police
creative.
Story or any of the Police Story movies?
Police Story is great.
Yeah,
No.
you should watch those, Andrew.
No, I haven't.
And
I
Legend
know
of Drunken Master.
that I
the
have.
second
That I
one.
have.
Okay,
Yeah, that I
that
have.
movie's funny. That's what's great about Jackie Chan movies. They're like action packed, but they are funny. He
Yeah.
knows how to like get all the emotions.
Well, he came. You know what's funny is that Jackie Chan officially does not know any real forms of martial arts. He's a dance choreographer who knows
Yeah.
how to move his body in a way
Mhm.
to do that. But the thing is, like, he understands what the martial arts are, and he does incorporate some parts of them, but he's not had the fully been
Well,
trained. He's not.
he understands how to make it look like a dance.
Well, I mean, the whole idea of martial arts in films is that it's heavily choreographed.
Mhm.
And he's one of the masters who knows how to do it in a way where it doesn't feel like it's choreographed, where it feels like it's improvised.
Yeah.
And he does a technique which whenever I get around stunt guys, I'm like, you got to do it this way. And stunt guys hate me for it because they know they can do it, they just don't like to do it because it's a little bit higher risk. And that is, hey, how about you don't hold your hand up in the block, 2 seconds before the guy throws the punch at you.
Yeah.
Just wait till after he starts throwing it, then come up for the block, because you guys know how to time it right.
Yeah, make it look more organic.
Make it look like there's reflexes,
Yeah.
as opposed to prediction. And that was one of the critiques I always had with the Matrix when I saw the first time around. I'm like, I like the Matrix overall. The fight scenes are actually like the least interesting part for me because, everybody's in the position where they've already put with their hands or feet where they're going to block the attack, and it's just waiting for the attack to reach them. And they try to hide it with some camera movement and other cinematography techniques. But it's like, no, I'm seeing this right exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it's boring. And and until you do the 360 stuff where you incorporate the special effects into it, it's like, no, I want to see this stuff. I want to see like Yes, Madam, Michelle Yeoh in her earlier productions with Cynthia Rothrock.
Yes.
And they're just kicking ass and they're hitting each other for real. And they're just powering through it.
Last time I was in Michigan, Dion and I had way too many drinks, and we were flipping through one of these streaming services, and we found a Cynthia Rothrock, Michelle Yeoh movie, and I was like, dude, you have to keep this thing on. It was like, and this isn't a dig at it, it was paced like a video game, where they would like walk in, they'd talk for a couple seconds, big fight scene. They'd go, they'd talk for a couple seconds at another location, another fight scene. It just, that's all it was. It was like all action, all satisfaction the entire time, and I dug it. Sometimes these overlong exposition scenes just are irrelevant. I definitely try to keep that in check with my own stuff, because it's like nobody really wants to sit and read 14 pages of why something's happening. You need to just make it happen and make it cool. There's Jeff's advice for the show. Let's check in with the audience because we have a couple things to talk about. First off, Rob Brandt says, a better start for Warhammer is the Horus Hearsay because you can see where everything goes off the rails and why the galaxy is in the state it is in by 40K. I've heard that before, Rob. Maybe it was from you, actually. But we've had a lot of diehard fans of the channel and Warhammer crossover, and Dion actually did get into it. We never bought the figures or did any of the gaming together, but he looked way more into it. So if you guys ever want to hear what he thought, ask us on a Thursday, because he checked it out like you guys recommended, and he got into it. Nick was too busy watching horror movies or making them, so that's up to him. But yeah, Rob, I'll see if there's like one of those like Comics Explained style videos that maybe will just have interesting visuals when I'm riding my bike or something. I'll check it out. Now, Haywood Jablomi is a new member on the channel, folks. So shout out to Haywood Jablomi. But Haywood has also gifted a WCBS membership. Folks, this is the season of giving. So thank you, Haywood Jablomi, for giving a WCBS membership. And folks, if you got that membership from Haywood Jablomi, make sure you say thank you in the chat.
You're really not being subtle about it at all.
I'm just happy I'm happy Haywood managed to come over from Hamlet 2 to Patreon over here and listen to us. I think that's great.
Haywood Jablomi also sends a super chat that says, the Ray Narcotics Lab fight is effing awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
Dude, the fights just in general in those movies are off the freaking chain.
That's the kind of stuff I study. Like, I don't have fight scenes like that in any of the books yet, but that's the kind of stuff I look at. I actually have a book. it's a scan of a book, so I don't want to act like I imported it from Japan, but it's literally a Japanese book. It's nothing but fight scenes. It's how they would stage them, and it's just like the lead up to the kick, the follow through, and the after action, and it's just like literally just like it's like 4 rows, and it's just the action in order. I think that's what the manga artists study. So I found a copy of that stuff. But on top of that, I love to watch martial arts just for the story that it tells without words. I think that's an exciting concept that a lot of people don't do. I'd like to see a Marvel movie with less words than they have. Just show us something interesting and let us follow through. Have some tension. Have anything.
That'd be nice, but I mean, it's the balancing of the budgets. It's cheaper for them to do talking heads than it is to do an action set piece, and then on top of that, they previs the action before they even get the director on board, and so there's no real voice or narrative to the action. And then the other part too, like to your point way earlier in the show, where you just can't stand superheroes on a TV budget. It's like, yeah, that's why, because all it is going to be them on standing sets talking about what they're planning to do, and a brief action scene that's going to feel very phoned in or heavily replaced with computer animatics
and really bad looking ones 9 out of 10 times
mostly. And you're like, God, that's what it is. It's like, yeah, if you really want to do a serious type of like superhero television show, you are looking at a $20 million budget episode minimum, and you're also looking at shooting 30 to 40 days per episode. Like it's heavy, and there's no shortcuts to do it.
I thought the MCU Marvel stuff, or sorry, the Netflix Marvel stuff in the beginning was the right balance for me personally. Like
Daredevil and Punisher.
Yeah, Daredevil's great. I've
never heard anybody have anything other than like glowing reviews of that show.
I like Daredevil a lot, but I like it for one of the rare reasons nobody really brings up is the fact that it's more Kingpin's own self-destruction than anything Daredevil is doing to actually take him down.
Yeah, I can see that, especially
because of his falling in for Vanessa, and he's trying to do everything. It's like he is doing more damage to himself than Daredevil ever could.
And you know what who my favorite character kind of was Ben Urich. I know people were mad about the race swap, but man, was I following Ben Urich, and I was so bummed when he got. I mean, come on, the show's a decade old.
Yeah, which is crazy because he's still alive in the comics, is he not? Like,
yeah, Ben Urich has been
because he's been around for like 50 years.
Yeah, because who died? Frederick Foswell. He died in like the issue 50 something. The Kingpin killed him because he was also the big man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, folks, Spider-Man used to have a lot of mob influences, and that's kind of what I would want to see if they're like, Jeff, here's a budget, here's your free reign. What are you doing? Spider-Man's ground level. He's fighting the Kingpin, Hammerhead, Silvermane, Tombstone, and all that kind of shit. We're just doing like the spectacular Spider-Man from the late 1980s, and we're gonna have it be like, and I don't mean dark as in like Punisher dark where people are getting blown apart, but it's not gonna be like a lot of daytime action.
It would be serious crime. So that's how you reconcile. It's not dark, but it's
not your
crime.
friendly neighborhood Spider-Man story.
Yeah, but he'll still be the friendly neighborhood.
Correct.
Spidey.
Yeah.
Correct, but there's a difference in tonality with the story overall.
Well, if anything,
it's what you're calling it.
It's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man contrasting with the serious tone of the serious crime, because that's where it is. Like, I mean, and that goes back to your point. Like, 80s Spider-Man did that. There'd be some serious crime, but there'd be the levity of Spider-Man's own compensation of the fear that's going through his mind at the time of dealing with this crap, and realizing the importance of doing it right based on the limited knowledge he has. Because again, one of the coolest parts of Spider-Man is of some of the stories is that sometimes he saves a person or he stops a crime, but it ends up having a rippling effect that causes something much worse happening later on. Mm-hmm. And you're like, that's pretty cool.
That's why it's one of the reasons why he's my favorite, because those stories are good. Now, one thing. Let's see. Todd McFarlane took Dark Spider-Man too far. Oh yeah, with all that. What was that? Oh, what's the book? It's adjective with Spider-Man. It's called like Rampage or whatever. That first one with the lizard, and he was like eating people and shit like that. I don't like those books.
His run on Spider-Man has some highs and lows, and I think the darker tone that got set there for a little bit is what ultimately I would consider a bit of a low on the whole. Um, I had a lot of respect for McFarlane. I
Same
love a
here.
lot of his art. I love a lot of what he brought. However, yeah, he definitely leaned more into that gritty, gruesome, dark tonality and visuals, and I think that unfortunately
right here.
it wasn't too. Oh yeah,
Oh, hold on. I'll give myself the floor for a second.
yeah,
Yeah, like this one, folks. Is this the issue you're talking about?
yep.
Ian,
Ooh,
yeah,
yeah.
this stuff with the lizard. It was
Oh
just
man,
like,
I love just seeing those pencils and inks.
that's the only way I want to read comics these days. I've been spoiled by these books. My goal is to get every one of these apps or artist editions or artifact editions because you get like full size drawings of the covers, which
Yeah.
you know, you're just like, holy shit, there it is. Even though I prefer this issue more than that cover, but that's a topic for another time. But I just wanted to show the book. I'm sorry. I don't.
No,
ever
it's a
get-
good
Oh, you're
book.
good. You're good, dude. If there's a link to that, like on Amazon or something, send me that.
Oh, I will. It was, what did this run? This was $130, I think.
That
But,
sounds
I mean,
about right
They're worth it. I don't
for one of
wanna-
those oversized artist editions. Because I've got the Michael Turner, Superman, Batman, Return to Supergirl one up on my shelf right now, and I freaking adore that thing. That's like the crown jewel of my comic collection.
Let's talk about the thing on screen that I'm dreading, this Snow White controversy. Now, folks, I'm not going to go watch this movie. I'm not really interested in it. I'm a guy who didn't even like Snow White when I saw it as a child. It's just a fine movie. It exists. It's interesting from an animation standpoint. It's important from a historical standpoint. But I wanted to get you guys on here. And Script, you have a good eye for all this because you work in the industry. Do you think the success of Wicked is going to roll over into this, or do you think that the outrage online is going to hurt this film?
I think it's going to do some damage, but I don't think it's going to be as much as people expect because most of the audience that's going to be interested in Snow White is not paying attention to Rachel Zegler and what she's saying, nor cares. Personally, I think, number one, this movie is at least a year too late because it should have been released on the Centennial for Disney. Number two, Snow White as a Brothers Grimm story is a comedy, and they've turned it into this dramatic liberation thing. Like, because let me just frame it out to you. The comedy is that, the older woman is jealous of the younger girl and kicks her out of the kingdom. And then when she finds out that the younger girl is still alive, she poses as an old lady and gives her a poison comb to kill her. And the poison comb goes into her hair, and she quote unquote dies until the dwarves come in, take the comb out, and then she comes back to life. And then the evil queen realizes that she's still alive, and she goes back again with a deadly lace, and which is kind of like a corset. And so she puts it around Snow White. Snow White suffocates, dies until the dwarves come back and remove the lace, and then she comes back alive again. And so the queen, after hearing this a second time, gets fed up. It's like, how is she still alive? Because that's the joke. Every time she tries to kill her, it doesn't work. Then she goes back, she gives her the poison apple, it gets lodged in her throat, she dies. The dwarves have no idea of what that is. They put her into a glass case. They're about to build a little monument to her, and then this rich prince comes by and says, hey, that's a pretty girl in a glass case. Can I buy her? And the dwarves like, at first, no, can't. It's like, I'll give you a lot of money. Then they're like, oh, okay, great, follow me with the case. And they do, and then they trip over a rock, they knock her down. The shock of the impact dislodges the poison apple from her mouth. Snow White comes back to life, falls in love with the prince, they get married, and at their wedding, the evil queen is one of the guests, and the evil queen kind of lets loose that she tried to kill the new bride, and as punishment, she's put in some hot iron shoes and is forced to dance to death.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's a ridiculous story. If Disney had the balls to do that, I would salute them, but they don't. Instead, what they did is, we'll just take the ending to Sleeping Beauty and we'll tack it on to Snow White, and then we'll call
That's
it
essentially what they did.
which is what they did, yeah.
That is
And we'll call it
basically
our
what
own thing. And now, 100 years later, we're going to do a partially live-action version of this with an actress who has one heck of a good singing voice. I'm not going to take that away from her because she does. But she also has a really poor personality when it comes to public relations.
Which is
And-
unfortunate because she does have some good strengths as an actress.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine her pulling off the musical numbers in this film, assuming they have them very strongly, based on when I saw Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the
Sure, or
prequel
like,
to the Hunger
she was
Games.
in the Heights too, I think, right? So she's done a
not
couple
sure.
of other, or was it West Side Story remake? I don't know. She's in one of the two.
I didn't see either.
Um,
I just
about
know
the
she's
musical
got
guy?
pipes,
yes, and then
but no good personality.
no, I mean she's got a boyfriend who is clearly a closeted homosexual. Um,
Damn.
I'm so well. I mean, listen,
It's not often. Usually Jeff and I are the assholes.
I saw him at what was it, the Teen Choice Awards when she won that thing recently, and it's like, wait a minute, that guy's not straight. I've worked enough years in Hollywood to be able to pick them out pretty easily.
She's his
the
beard.
single
Is that
ear
what you're
piercing too. That's an old tell from like the late '80s. Like, how is that? That's just the way it
saying?
is.
Oh, dude.
So yeah, like, and then you have the fact that Disney does this for two reasons. Number one, they have to reaffirm the copyright for not just the seven dwarves, but also their interpretation of Snow White. So they've altered the story so that it is basically her leading a liberation of the kingdom from the evil queen, which I don't think tonally honors what the story should be.
Mhm.
Because the essence of the original Brothers Grimm story is that one's own obsession over the superficial will lead to your own demise, and that's by way of the evil queen. Her obsession over Snow White, trying to get rid of her because her beauty and her nobility threatens her, leads to her demise. Where the evil queen could just be like, I could just accept that I'm getting older, and I could just try and be a good person, so that, I don't. I don't really feel the need to compete with this person anymore. If she's inherently good, I can be inherently good. And then the only distinguishing aspect is that I will just age while she also ages. I will depart prior to her, of course, of all natural things, but at least I could leave a legacy of being a great person, as opposed to my jealousy is going to kill the youth beneath me so that I can always stay at the top. And it's basically like trying to retain power unnaturally. And when you try to do that unnaturally, you end up, dying. You end up losing everything, and leaving nothing behind. That theme isn't really part of the Disney version of Snow White. It's definitely not going to be part of this one here. And then I know there's a lot of Gal Gadot fans out there. I think she has a pretty face. I think she needs to have a woman's body, personally. That's just my opinion. It's like she was a supermodel, but she was a supermodel at the time when supermodels didn't have breasts or butts. They had their rib cage exposed.
Oh, the Kate Moss effect.
Yeah.
I remember. That's the best Family Guy joke ever. Pete or
Chris Griffin is like, watch out for the crack in the floor.
Shape is preferred, but Gal Gadot, I'm not gonna. As somebody who prefers more of this,
an hourglass.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Gal Gadot isn't still gorgeous.
No, she has a beautiful face. Like, that's what you're drawn to. Her silhouette may be the shape of a spoon, but she has a beautiful face and a smile that, just melts your heart.
Man, something crawled up Script's ass tonight.
Oh, no, he's
I'm
always
just
a
having
savage.
fun
I
with-
love it.
I'm just having fun with her, because here's the other part too. They keep on the Hollywood has been pushing Gal Gadot to try and be a leading lady and a sex symbol, and it's like, no, she's the charmer. You got to get her into positions where she's got like that Julia Roberts type smile, and the eyes and stuff. Like, you got to focus on that. Stop putting her in these movies with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds where she's wearing a skimpy outfit, or the Fast and the Furious things where she's in a size 0 bikini that's too big for her. It's just lean into what her strengths are. That's what you're supposed to do in Hollywood. And I mean, when she was cast as Wonder Woman, I'm like, okay, that's a bad choice, but I see why they did it. And then she literally had to like overeat, and the only growth she managed to get was in her thighs. Like, that's sad, because it's like, okay, you cast a person that was from Fast and the Furious because they turned heads, which is fine, but you completely ignored like a half dozen other, tall, brunettes that could put on the muscle far more naturally and also have curves that wouldn't need basically a corset with fake boobs in it to make this former supermodel look like a Wonder Woman. I mean, what was her? She was in the the almost greenlit Justice League movie with Miller. What's his first name? He did the Mad Max films and escaped me.
George Miller.
Yeah, George Miller. George Miller cast this one woman for Wonder Woman, and she looked great. And we've all seen well, maybe we haven't all, but the number of people have seen her in the sample costumes. They weren't the final ones, but they were the templates that they were using for getting their color scheme correct and sizes. She looked great. And she's also really good actress. I want to say her last name is Hill or something, but I can't remember.
I got the picture I'm pulling up for you, right? Megan Gale.
Megan Gale, yeah. Very good actress. Oh,
We don't have to keep looking at
Rachel Zegler and those computer animated guys, yeah.
There we go. That's what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Is that actually her?
That's actually her in the test
Those are the
costume.
images.
Yeah, that is 8 months before production. And those are the basic images.
I'm a fan of the overall shape of the costume, but not the intricacies and design.
Well, those wouldn't have been the final part because that's their test. Those are the stuff they pulled out of storage and kind of pieced together.
Sure.
That was right before she'd be going to the gym doing what was called the Helen Slater routine. So Helen Slater was trained by David Prowse, just like Christopher Reeve was.
Okay.
But since David Prowse is not alive, they basically it's like, we're just going to go put her through the same regiment. But you take a look at her at that point, and it's like, wow, look at that. She's kind of.
What is this low res crap on my screen here, Joe?
That's that's the best resolution of the picture. That's from the movie that got canceled.
And all those things are pieced together, costumes from other productions that they put together. So the Martian Manhunter thing is from the failed television show. The Batman stuff was cobbled together from 4 other Batman suits. The Superman thing was...
What's hilarious about that bat suit and you saying it looks like it's cobbled together by 4 of the Batman suits is, at least in this low-res photo, it reminds me of the one from The Batman.
Yeah. And all this stuff was like pretty cool. It was basically Justice League against Maxwell Lord and OMAC. It was I wasn't 100% on board with the entirety of the cast, but I like who they got for Wonder Woman.
Let's say Jay Baruchel is Maxwell Lord. You weren't on board with that one?
No, he was too young.
Who did they have as the Flash? And was that supposed to be Barry or Wally?
It was Adam Brody was the Flash, which I also didn't agree with. And they also had Armie Hammer for Batman, which I also didn't agree with.
Yeah, I'm not an Armie Hammer fan.
He's not an actor. He's just the inheritor of the Arm & Hammer family fortune, and he financed the movies that he got involved in. And when Disney tried to make him a star and he couldn't deliver with Johnny Depp and the Lone Ranger, his career was essentially like relegated to like D F list status.
Didn't he allegedly eat somebody's pinky toe or something, or wanted
craved? I think that he allegedly craved to eat someone's pinky toe.
Okay. Well, you can take your Arm & Hammer fortune and stay alone.
He was in
Social Network,
Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah,
and he was awesome in that.
Was he the Russian, like the blonde Russian?
No, he was the American, wasn't he?
I can't remember because that's Armie Hammer.
he was the American opposite Henry Cavill's Brit, and they were great. I freaking love that movie. That's one of my all-time favorite movies.
That was a good movie. That was better than whatever James Bond was out at the time.
Honestly, it was better than any of the James Bond films that I had seen post
Pierce Brosnan,
yeah. And that's me being a fan of Casino Royale. He was
Ilya Kuryakin, the main, because I remember the TV show Man from U.N.C.L.E., the blonde guy, and Robert Wagner, what's his face? The bad guy from Superman 3.
Oh God, Robert Vaughn, right? Yes.
There you go. Thank you.
Robert Vaughn.
Now, we've had some audience members send in some super chats, so thank you, folks. First up, Jim Sterling and a Mankini. visual image I don't want to see. I have no boot and I must scream in the boot of madness, boot of darkness, boot horizon. Late Night with the Boot and John Carpenter's The Boot.
Oh,
That's a good one, Late Night with the Boot.
that would be good.
Folks, if you haven't watched Late Night with the Devil, I strongly recommend it. It is it came out this year, correct?
Yeah,
Like,
it came out
wide
this year
release?
with Sean. I can't pronounce his name.
David-
David Dash Madden.
Yeah. Not related to M. Night Shyamalan.
Gesundheit.
No, he's got a complicated name, but I've known about him since he started doing like iced tea commercials back in the day. Like he's been around
He's
for
good.
a while. He's really good.
I think
yeah.
he's even written a couple comic books.
I think so too. Like you know what's crazy is that he wasn't doing it, but there was a small lobby at Warner Brothers for him to play the Joker. And the closest they got is Bruno Heller picking him up for the Gotham series to play a nutball that wanted to be the Joker. And I'm like, that's kind of a waste of him because he's got a really good look. However, I don't know what it is, but a part of me thinks that if James Gunn is going to go through with his Batman Brave and the Bold, if he does do a Joker, it might be Bradley Cooper playing him.
I mean, it would be well acted, but I don't know. I don't really think
I
Bradley
can
Cooper has the
actually
comedic chops. Because the Joker's got to be funny, not just deadly.
Well, that's the thing. Like Bradley Cooper is really bad at comedy, even though he's done a few of them. he always sticks out as a sore thumb. Look at him in The Hangover, The Wedding Crashers,
Yep.
Wet Hot American Summer. It doesn't feel like he belongs, but that might be something that could be worked well with something like the Joker, where he does comedy that doesn't feel like it belongs. And Bradley Cooper can do that. Plus, he's got the hooked nose for the Joker.
Yep.
Honestly, I think I see the vision. I think it could work.
I have some suspicions because, again, he's worked with James Gunn on 3 films as Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah.
I
actually think that casting could work really well.
And this is my speculation, just because I think that might be the way it's going. And Creature Commandos, I think, comes out in like 5 hours too. So
Oh gosh.
Wait,
that's
there's
right.
a DC show that's out now, coming up.
yeah, on Max, Creature
Animated,
Commandos, the cartoon series that James Gunn did before he got hired as the head of DC Studios.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
I
the
might
first 2
watch it.
episodes drop. I don't know if it's midnight tonight or 3 a.m. From now, but it's supposed to debut tomorrow.
Maybe I'll have my coffee and watch Creature Commandos. I'll make a short about it. I mean, the Penguin was good. Right now, I'm pretty much pro DC. It's their game to lose in my eyes. So,
Oh, yeah.
swoop in
That is
while
an
the
accurate
Marvel's morale
statement.
is low.
It's totally theirs to lose, and I will definitely be front and center if they screw up, because I want good DC Marvel superhero stories. They have a use and a purpose.
Oh God, yeah, they do. They're timeless. They're like modern myth versus Marvel's relatable heroes, which
Mhm.
they both have a place in today's world. But Marvel's
Absolutely.
made their heroes so mundane, where you're just like, I don't really care what happens with Captain America, but I'm willing to give random DC guy a shot because at least it could be interesting. So that's kind of how I feel about it. It's next year is going to be interesting. I'm sure we'll be doing our shows together, and I'm going to love to talk about Superman with you, Script, because we've been talking about it since, God, for years at this point. You've been talking about your interests and what you hope to see out of it. Same with you, Andrew. So hopefully we all enjoy
We're gonna have
it.
to do a big review show for the Superman film. For sure.
I am gonna be doing everything I can while I'm in LA to see if I can get into one of those possible test screenings of
Mhm.
Superman, because apparently one has already occurred and
Oh.
they love it. So, and this is final special effects, so I kind of want to see what it is. I was fortunate enough to see like a couple of other movies that won't be released till next year, early. And if the edits stay the same, Mel Gibson's Flight Risk is going to be a fun small movie to watch, which I hope will be worthy of recommending again. If they kept, it's got Mark Wahlberg. It's all contained on an airplane. It's pretty cool.
Ooh, I love claustrophobic one location contained movies.
Yeah.
They're some of my favorites.
The other part, it also has Topher Grace not playing a Topher Grace character. So I mean, I'll just put it that way.
I still like that 70s show, but I went back to watch a movie Topher Grace is in called Take Me Home Tonight, and I used to think it was this really fun, like, callback to the 80s, and I went back and I watched it recently, and I turned it off because his, like, character type just doesn't resonate with me anymore. Maybe I was younger and I thought, well, this is kind of funny or different or whatever, but now I look at him outside of that 70s show, and I'm just like, oh, it's Eric Foreman. I'm like, I want to see him in something that makes me bring that back, because outside of Spider-Man 3, it was a while until I disliked him, so
Yeah.
I'll give him a chance. But thank you to Jim Sterling and a Mankini. Our friend Aurora Uplinks, thank you very much for both of these. MASH, I was saying today, a story about a medical spaceship follow the style of MASH. Dry humor, witty doctors, drama, caring humanitarians in space. And each episode could follow them as they go from battlefield world to battlefield, sometimes going to spaceship disasters, rendering aid in story.
Cool, like
like
MASH
that
in space. That's a good concept. Write it up, Aurora Uplinks, and try and sell it.
Yeah. If you need some concept art, hit me up. I think it's a cool concept. I'd enjoy to draw that. Or I'd enjoy drawing.
Don't
it,
even have to
excuse me.
change the acronym because it still works, because it's all about mobile hospitals.
Yeah. You know, MASH was always the show that meant it was time for me to go to bed as a kid. I was like, oh, The Simpsons are over, MASH is on, I'm going to go to sleep.
That's how Jeff knew. I guess I'll go lie down. It's fine.
There's a couple shows that would pop up, and I'm like, yep, I'm done with TV for the day.
I'm trying to. It's been way too long for me to remember the exact block for Toonami, the Midnight Run. They would have, like your Trigun, your Inuyasha, your Cowboy Bebop, and Outlaw Star. I don't remember what hour all of that actually wrapped up. Part of that might be because I was sneaking into the living room to watch that super low volume while my parents were asleep. So
my
that might
mom
be
could
part of
sleep
it.
through anything. So when I got satellite, I was still in grade school. But I'd be like, all right, well, my mom's snoring. I'm going to go downstairs and watch whatever the hell was on, I think everybody snuck around and watched TV.
Oh, hell yeah.
I was like, oh, I got to watch The Simpsons. Then I got to watch an episode of Married with Children. Then I got to watch an episode of Son of the Beach. Like,
Oh yeah,
that show was, I loved that show. It's not great, but I love that show.
it did what it needed to do by basically saying this is literally what Baywatch is doing. Just now we're just not hiding the humor.
Jamaica St. Croix, B.J. Cummings, Notch Johnson,
Notch
and then there was
Johnson,
that other
yeah.
guy. I think Timothy Stack was the actor's name. That guy's funny.
Timothy Stack. Oh, I mean, what's funny is that the blonde, not BJ, but the other one, she played Frost, I think, in the Justice League pilot.
Oh, that
Justice League
really
pilot.
crappy one from the 90s?
The really crappy one from the 90s, yeah.
The Kyle Rayner, I almost said Kyle Katarn. The Kyle Rayner Green Lantern mask in that is laughably bad.
Yeah.
Well, I'm already not a Kyle Rayner fan, which is interesting because I like most.
Is it
most
because his
Bronze
girlfriend was
Age.
put in a refrigerator?
No, I don't give a crap about that. I never vibed with him, and which is weird because so many things about him, I totally would jive with. Like he's an artist, and he's kind of a weeb, so his constructs, he'll do giant freaking mechs and things like that, and the idea that he's constantly, because he's an artist, trying to perfect them as he's utilizing them, that's cool to me. Just him as a character never clicked with me, and that's fine. A lot of my friends are massive Kyle Rayner fans. I'm the odd man out.
I like John Stewart enough, but I like Hal Jordan. If I'm going to read a Green Lantern comic book, I'd rather it be Hal Jordan. The costume, the era, hell, even the old Gil Kane stuff from back in the actual Silver Age when he was new, that version of Green Lantern.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
how
the one that was refined a bit by Bill Finger back in the day, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great DC stuff from the past. There's a lot of great DC stuff from any decade, I guess. The modern world still counts. I don't want to be like everything modern sucks. I just don't read enough of it to go on about it.
No, I mean, the thing is, I would just say that it's, with every subsequent decade, the good stuff is few and far between compared to the stuff previously.
Mhm.
And I think that has more to do with management just trying to get anyone just to fill pages as opposed to, oh, we got this cool idea that we want to find the right writer to pursue, or properly taking pitches. They don't do that. There's the old, like, Dan Didio had a pretty decent model for taking pitches from freelance writers who had tested their mettle in other titles, but I don't know who the heck is running it right now.
Too bad he was a prick when he was editor-in-chief at DC Comics.
He was a prick, but sometimes he's a prick.
He let his yes, and like Jim Shooter is a good example of that. But then you look at Dan Didio, who allowed his, I guess for lack of a better term, prejudice against certain characters to seep into the actual storytelling itself when it wasn't his business to do so.
Right. Yeah.
And so he was constantly having characters like Dick Grayson and Wally West and Kyle Rayner, basically any legacy hero that wasn't Silver Age or older, just crapped all over.
I want to get Jim Shooter on the channel one day while he's still doing this kind of stuff.
Oh my God, that'd be the coolest thing in the world.
That'd be educational. That's the reason. Like,
oh yeah, because he is editor-in-chief during the era of Marvel that I like the most.
Well, it's because he ruled Marvel editorial with an iron fist, and the quality bore out.
Yeah, there's really good Spider-Man books, really good X-Men books. Daredevil.
She-Hulk was great at that point period too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because that was sensational. That was before John Byrne's She-Hulk. Still pretty good, but then John Byrne took over and it was really good.
Oh yeah, John Byrne that's a guy that I never want to meet, but I love his artwork.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is that his version of She-Hulk, he actually did not write the majority of or pencil or the majority of the issues of that. It was he did, I think, only a third, and then the rest was by two other teams.
Oh,
but like the tone was still consistent, and the humor was still consistent.
I never liked that character. Like I guess the spin-off or derivative characters, I just never got into those ones as much. So it's like, oh, there's Spider-Girl. I'll just read Spider-Man. Same with the Hulk. It's like, oh, there's She-Hulk.
I do get that. However, Byrne's She-Hulk is worth reading, as is the was it late 90s Spider-Girl run. There's
the Mayday Parker one.
Yeah.
I've read that.
Like there's
more recent stuff. Like I have that whole run with the
I wouldn't know about any more recent stuff like that but that older stuff that you have read, like that's actually genuinely fun stuff.
I mean, it's a great concept. Spider-Man loses his leg in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
He has to hang it up. His daughter becomes Spider-Man essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's okay. And he's still in all the issues.
And he's the mentor character now. So like that's a natural progression for Peter Parker if he's got legacy, kids. But like, I understand the concept of derivatives, but there's twofold to it. The first one is you got to protect your copyright. And then the second one is, okay, if you're protecting your copyright, put some effort behind it so that you actually make that copyright that you've protected more valuable. And I would say She-Hulk is one of the few successes. Spider-Woman is kind of mixed, but they've got some that are pretty good. Like I like Julia Carpenter. I was
going to say I'm more of a Julia Carpenter over Jessica Drew guy.
Yeah,
personally.
But like you can make it work. But again, it goes back down to the sorry, I'm just losing my train of thought here. It goes down to the effort put in. I mean, I'm kind of thankful that of some characters that don't have a man in their name, like Daredevil. You don't need to make a female Daredevil because Daredevil is just Daredevil. It works out well. Same with Punisher.
I'm going to break your heart right now.
I mean, I know they have.
Elektra is currently a Daredevil in Marvel
but the
Comics,
thing is, they haven't split it up to like share the names. Like it's not She Daredevil or anything.
No, it's just they're both called Daredevil at the moment,
just
which
a
is
single title.
Stupid.
Yeah, or same thing with like Punisher. Like there's going to be a female Punisher one day, but it's not Punish Her, it's Punisher. So,
I mean, I would read Punish Her. I should write Punish Her. That it'd be one of those weird. Never mind.
You'd have to hyphenate it.
Well,
and then
what you do is go Google. It's a 30 Rock sketch. It's from the show. It's called Bitch Hunter, and it's got Will Ferrell in it.
and then just make a Punish Her book that's follows similar premise to that. But
You turned me off
local
as soon as
take
you
on
said
it.
Will Ferrell.
Well, it's just him with a shotgun going after women and saying "You're dead, bitch," and then shooting at them.
I liked 30 Rock. I didn't
30
finish
Rock's
it,
pretty good. Yeah.
but I liked what I watched.
I think one of the few people of my generation that didn't find Will Ferrell funny, ever.
It depends on the movie.
I don't like Elf.
You don't like Elf?
I don't like
Elf
Elf.
is so charming.
It wasn't for. I just found him annoying. I was like, I'm gonna go back and watch. I'm gonna sound like Script right now.
Sure.
When he's always talking about wanting to go back and stick with the Silver and Golden Age stuff when we're talking about comics, I would rather just go back and watch all the old claymation stuff than watch Elf any day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Elf is never on my Christmas watch list. I've never owned it on physical media. It's one of those movies where it's like, everyone's watching Elf. Sure, I'll watch it. It's on TV. I'll give it a couple minutes till it goes to commercial. No problem. But I saw it in high school when it came out. We watched it in class, and it was nice. But Buddy v. Elf is not Ralphie Parker or Clark W. Grizzle or any of these. And
Right.
yes, I intentionally call him Grizzle because somebody asked me that, like, why do you call him that? Because in the first movie, John Candy calls him that by mistake, and nobody references it. So that's why he's not Clark Griswold to me. He's Clark Grizzle as a joke. But anyway, those movies are great. Elf is fine. It's you'll never hear me go on about it. I guess
I've seen it
I don't-
once through, exactly once.
I don't really
That's-
like James Caan that much. So
Yeah, you're
you
not
know.
supposed to, right? But
Well, I just
mean,
mean
you got
in-
Zoe
I mean in
Deschanel, who's not
anything.
bad in it. Yeah.
Only in Misery do I like James Caan. I feel sorry for him because I'm like, oh, that poor mofo. Kathy Bates is crazy. She's good though. That's a good.
Kathy
actress.
Bates is good.
Yeah. Speaking of good, let's check in with our wonderful audience. Wartooth says things cannot take over Xeno due to biomechanical component. Oh, you mean like the Thing?
Right.
Oh,
That species.
oh, okay. That would actually be a cool crossover, though. McCready and Ripley. Well, there's a time warp, so you got to get them together. But like Kurt Russell, Sigourney Weaver fighting aliens, that's a movie we need and never got. Kurt Russell was the man, or still is the man.
Actually, you know what? The Thing might be able to replicate a completed xenomorph.
Oh, I don't know all the Xenomorphs' different stages. I'm a bad Alien fan.
Well, I mean, the xenomorph is a hybrid of whatever host it, pulls from, right? And so the Thing could, once post-host, could absorb and replicate, and then you now got a Thing-motivated xenomorph.
That'd be weird.
That would be
weird.
kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
I thought the thing at the end of Alien Romulus was pretty horrifying. The Xenomorph engineer hybrid. It just had a really unsettling face.
It reminded me too much of Alien Resurrection and that end creature.
I have not. I've
Yeah.
heard that. I still need to see it. I still want to see it. I
Outside
haven't
of the
gotten
one or
around
two
to it.
lines, I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And Script knows what I'm talking about. The specific. I think everybody hated that line. I kind of.
They should have. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, that's like if fucking what's his name, Jai Courtney was like, "I'll be back," and in Terminator Genesis, you're like, "Oh no, dude, come on!" I'm already sitting here watching a lesser than movie. Don't remind me of the good ones.
It was bad enough to even have Jai Courtney in a Terminator film.
You mean any film? You know?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so this movie is mostly indefensible, but he was an okay Captain Boomerang.
Yeah, because that movie
All
was
right.
ridiculous, but he was
Yeah.
fine.
So he was actually a good cast for Captain Boomerang. It just, the movie itself
I
needed.
mean, he just went a little bit. I mean, he went a little bit
Much better
pervy in a
stuff.
different direction than I'm used to for Captain Boomerang, because he's
Yeah.
sniffing like the unicorn stuffed animal, which I'm like, didn't Deadpool already kind of do that?
that I thought kind of the same thing. I was like, okay, but overall, like he did have a good performance in that. I'm not gonna knock him for that.
There's a video of him at the premiere of that movie, and he seemed kind of endearing in that at the premiere. I'm like, all right, I'd hang out with this dude and drink a beer. So he might not be a good actor, but he seems normal
Well,
enough. I don't know.
I will say this, Donald Gibson, who is Mel Gibson's brother, he voiced Boomerang in the JLU in
Oh, I didn't know
cartoons. And I mean, and I thought that he did a
pretty good performance because they have to hold back because Boomerang has done some pretty horrific essay in the comics.
Mhm.
Which you learn
his
about
gimmick is kind of goofy on its face, but yeah, in the comics, the actual stuff he's done.
Yeah, because they cover a little bit of it in the original Suicide Squad run early on. Like he has no reservations about what he wants and how he was willing to get it.
Yeah.
That's dark.
Yeah.
It's true though.
Our friend John Thomas has a question. Did anyone see that dog poo Jaguar cars?
Yeah.
I didn't see any cars in that commercial, actually.
Looks like a croc with wheels.
That's disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I know what they're trying to do with the style, but it's because they're trying to model it after like a little Art Deco-y, but they've squared it off too much, so it looks kind of like a Cybertruck. More
Art
so.
Deco is not known for its hard edges.
No, yeah, Jaguar is known for its curves and its sleekness and its seduction, and then it's like, no, let's make it more boxy because Jaguar's never done that before. I'm like, oh no, I understand that, but that's just because it's never been done doesn't mean it's a good idea because you also have to stay on brand of what it is to have Jaguar.
Correct.
And
they were not marketing to the Jaguar consumer base with that that move.
I've read a lot of books that talk about business, and I've read a book on like growth, and they talk about in the book how you don't see a lot of luxury things run commercials because the people that buy them don't necessarily have time to watch the TV.
Yeah, sure, they're busy
would buy
working
those
and making a
products.
lot of money.
Yeah, and I just thought it was weird. It's like the more you advertise these luxury items, you take away the allure of them, and you also kind of. It's like, look, your average person on the street's not able to buy a Jag. They don't even want one necessarily. But
they're better
it's
luxury
just such
cars.
a weird commercial. What'd you say?
I said they're better luxury cars.
and there's ones with more mechanics that can service them than there are for Jaguar.
Yeah, than the 16 in the continental United States that can service
30
a Jaguar,
globally and
right?
30 globally, yeah.
At best, that's being generous.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a Mercedes over a Jaguar any day.
Oh, you don't want a Mercedes.
Oh, I'd take a BMW because those are pretty reliable. Parts again still expensive, but pretty reliable.
I just really like that Mercedes SUV, the one that looks real boxy like a Jeep.
Mm.
It's a cool looking car to me.
Fair enough.
But
If I
this
can
is
get
when
a
you're-
street legal 1966 Batmobile, I'd be pretty happy.
Give me James Bond's Aston Martin DB5. That's my dream car.
Yeah.
Or a Vanquish, which those are oddly affordable. For some reason, I guess they overproduced the car. But when I lived out west, they had one for $34,000, and I put an inquiry in, and they messaged me back, "It's sold." I was like, "Shit."
That's
I coulda had an
it?
Yeah, the Aston Martin Vanquish is not an expensive car. Now, this was after the pandemic, technically, or maybe during the pandemic, but those cars have dropped in price because they used to be $225,000, but now they've
So
dropped a lot.
if it was, I bet you I know what it was. So if it was during the pandemic or like right after, a lot of people tried selling off their cars and stuff like that because of the crap that went down during the pandemic. So I'm willing to bet that a lot of people who had that Aston Martin sold it to get some quick cash, and because there was that overproduction of that model, all of a sudden there were all of these used Vanquishes available, and so their market value just plummeted, and so used dealers just had to be able to flip them a lot more quickly because $35,000.
I'm
you
looking
said?
on Edmunds right now. This is Edmunds. They say price estimate $12,000 to $17,000.
No.
But it also costs $400 a month in gas because it's got a V12 engine.
Oof.
My God in heaven.
Look, James Bond drove it for one scene. That's it. So he didn't need to worry about gas because that car blew up after he drove it on one tank.
Cool. Problem solved.
Yeah,
That-
I'm gonna
that's
flip my car.
I was gonna say that plays into the story beat that we talked about last show, which was somebody who just is so rich they can't be bothered to fill up on gas. They just get a new damn car.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, one of us is gonna write that scene first.
I mean, I'm gonna just, you know what? I'm just gonna write it on a Post-it and stick it in every copy of Wokebusters and say, "Hey, I claim it."
That's cheating, Jeff.
That's not proper publication.
Well, maybe I'll see if the printer can just stop the presses and just let me just put it in the cover. Like, here, print this in the front cover.
That is so ridiculous.
Are you just gonna leave the car here? It's okay. I called another one's being imported in with a full tank of gas.
Right.
They're gonna tow it. I could still find a Vanquish is about 48,000 for the exact James Bond model. So yeah,
That's still way lower than I would have expected, but
well,
all right.
it used to be my dream car. I thought this was the coolest car when I was in the 8th grade.
So you
it's like-
realize $400 a month for gas?
Oh, I realized that today when I read the website. I had no clue how much it would
Oh,
cost
okay.
to run this thing. I'd be like, oh yeah, man, I spent $42,000 in gas this year because, you know, I wanted to ride around in my James Bond car and tell people, you know, my name's Hicks, Jeff Hicks.
It works.
Okay, so have we covered everything? Anybody in
we
the
kinda
chat have
have.
anything else we want to talk about tonight? It's been a fun show. I gotta say, we've meandered, but they're always a good meander here on this Tuesday night stream because
World-class meandering.
yeah, world class meandering. That's the new show, folks. WC,
World-class rabbit trails.
We could become world class rabbit holes. We could pick a rabbit hole to go down. Actually, that's not a bad idea for a podcast. Let me write that one down. 'Cause it's like-
World-class
rabbit hole
cape
show.
shit.
yeah, I mean, don't get me started on art. We'll go into that shit. Rabbit
Oh,
hole show.
it would take no effort whatsoever.
It's like, hey guys, let's look at some Joe Sinnott inking today. People are like, what the hell is Joe Sinnott? I'm like, well,
Oh, well, let me
And
tell
then-
you.
yeah, let me tell you something, brothers. Yeah, I'm gonna cut Hulk Hogan promos talking about comic book art.
Dude, that could totally be a bit.
It could be. Fuck, let's write this one down.
That could
too.
be a genuine bit. Don't lose that thread.
Well, I wrote it on the back of my WCBS business card.
Perfect.
Because what I do is when I send out the
Don't
book-
hand that one out to anyone.
Oh, I won't. Because what I do is when I send out Stealing Solo, I write like a thank you and I put the person's name on it. But this person, Adrian, bought the book and I went, wait, this is a missed opportunity. So I wrote, yo, Adrian, thank you, instead of just thank you, Adrian. So I did it twice.
I got you. I see what you did there.
Anytime, look. when life
Tell
gives
me
you
that
an
anytime
opportunity-
somebody who's named Mark, you have to send something to you go, oh, hi, Mark.
I can't not do that.
Okay.
If there's a movie quote to be made, I'm going to make it. I just can't. That's like
If someone's a Wilson, do you write Wilson?
I usually would think of Hey Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace before I'd think of
Oh, okay.
Castaway.
No, that's fair.
I saw Castaway twice and I don't love it. It's a good movie. I'm not gonna act like it's some bad movie or it's got bad acting. It's just it's one of those situations like I've come to this realization. Robert Zemeckis, outside of the Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit stuff, he's not for me. His movies have a little bit of
fair.
a sentimentality that I don't appreciate. And it's not that I think they're bad. It's just I don't really want to watch sentimental movies, or I don't want to watch certain types of stories. I'd rather watch, I don't know, Back to the Future.
Well, I
Fair
mean,
enough.
Bob Zemeckis has done like his best work with Bob Gale, and Bob Gale is a difficult writer producer to work with.
Is
So
it just because he's real stubborn about stuff, or
mostly like he's not a jerk or anything of that nature, but he's very committed to like what he knows works. And this came after the fact that he and Zemeckis spent 5 to 6 years just getting the first Back to the Future right, and all the lessons that they've learned from that, Bob Gale tries to maintain with everything that he wrote afterwards. He actually wrote a screenplay
It's an
that was
understandable
essentially
approach.
a comedy of the origin of McDonald's, and he wrote it shortly after he finished the Back to the Future trilogy, and sadly it never got picked up, but it does hit all the right story beats that you know this would have made a really great film. Empathetic, has good adventure, has a great twist ending, all about fast food.
But then we got Founders.
Well, Founder
Whatever it's
was
called.
just came like a good decade and a half afterwards, and one of my best friends was a researcher on that film for that team, and it was that was just based off the true story. This one was completely fictional. I mean, it ended
I
up
see.
with, like, it ended up with one guy saying, "We think you use horse meat for your hamburgers," like, and that's part of like the jokes.
Right.
And that's like one of Bob Gill's jokes in there. But yeah, like Zemeckis is a really good filmmaker, but he does lean on the sentimentality a lot, especially with like Forrest Gump. And his recent one Here, I think it's called Here, which is like the single locked off a camera and just single shot. Good experimentation for a film, but I mean, I'm glad he's doing it. But yeah, it's like I kind of want him to see if he can get back to more of like a little bit more of the upbeat fun, because the closest he was doing with the upbeat fun was like his computer animated motion capture series, like he did the Christmas Carol one.
Did you Monster House?
He did Monster House. Yeah,
I like that.
I think he did Polar Express as well.
That's an Uncanny Valley movie.
Yeah, like he was. I mean, you got to appreciate him for the fact that he was trying to experiment with stuff. And
Absolutely.
But yeah, not all of it works. I mean, he's one of the few directors that's from that era that's still taking risks. Like Spielberg doesn't take risks anymore.
No.
Which is sad. Brian De Palma is almost. I feel like he hasn't made anything in a while, and he should be making more.
I was about to say, where is he?
Yeah, he's still around. Same thing with like Joe Johnston, who is a brilliant
Rocketeer.
Yeah, Rocketeer, Captain America, First Avenger.
Was that his last movie, Captain America?
No, wasn't his last movie, but it was the last big one that I can think of.
He's part of a Lucasfilm documentary that's really interesting because he was going to quit after, I think, was Return of the Jedi or one of these movies.
Yeah.
And Lucas basically sent him to film school and asked him to stick around, and then he did. Then he went on to do a bunch of great movies. Like, I didn't realize he directed Jumanji. I love that movie.
Yeah, it looks. Yeah, he's had a break because he did Not Safe for Work right after the first Avenger. Then he did the Nutcracker in the Four Realms, which I never heard of.
That's my first time hearing of that.
It looks like he's still attached as the for the sequel to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which is Shrunk, because he directed those movies before. And he is apparently the director of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Silver Chair, which I think is coming after the Greta Gerwig Chronicles of Narnia film that she's associated with.
Wait, Gerwig was doing a series, right?
I don't know if she was doing a series. I thought she was doing a remake with Netflix as part of the...
Maybe I misunderstood, because for some reason I had it in my mind that she was doing a remake series of the film, starting with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But maybe I misread what she was doing.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the rights are also split. Maybe there's two variations coming up, but it's no. But according to the details here, it's part of the Netflix and the Mark Gordon company, which is similar to the Greta Gerwig stuff.
I did not watch Narnia, the first one. I haven't read a Narnia book, so I will probably pass on all these things.
Because Silver Chair would have been the next one after Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Chronologically.
Yeah,
and Voyage of the Dawn Treader was the last one that they did under the old studio. That's why that's interesting to me.
Well, again, this is also Netflix, and if they've got that series, they're probably getting production and developments for the entire run, and then they're just going to bang them out.
Okay.
Which I don't think is a great idea, because you kind of want to see, audiences actually like the first one that you launch first before you start investing in the others. But again, it's Netflix.
Yeah. So. Interesting. Okay.
Good old Netflix.
Yeah, Silver Chair is the second to last one.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very generous super chat from John Thomas. I'll read in just a second. But Troll says, "Hey Jeff, any P.O. Box update in Uncle Ben, please." I got to do that. That's on me. I've been busy, folks. I'm sorry. I will talk to my local post office and see what we can get. I don't want to get a giant P.O. Box because we had that before. Well, to be fair, we used to get tons of mail. I guess to get more mail, I have to actually open the damn thing. So that's on me, Shrubbles Away. I'll go up there. I want to do that stuff. To be honest, I keep all the stuff you guys give me. Like, I got my Axel Foley mug from over there, figures, all kinds of stuff. I didn't realize how much stuff I had from the P.O. Box until I went over to my mom's place, and I was like, oh, shit, there's a ton of crap here. No, it's crap, by the way. I do have 100 Rose Ticos, so just no more of those, please. Now,
now you'll just get some Agathas.
well, they're at Ollie's right now, so please don't send me Agatha Harkness action figures. I don't know what to say. I don't want them.
Chat, your mission, should you choose to accept it.
I'll just donate them to the kids. I'll be like, hey, Toys for Tots kids, here's Agatha.
Oh,
Well, that's
man.
kind of evil.
That's not charity.
Hey, to be fair, a lot of people tell me that I should just buy those Ollie's toys and give them away. I give away stuff, but I usually buy Batman or Spider-Man because I'm like, well, kids.
You know what you should do? If you're going to donate the Rose Tico and Agatha toys, donate them with the Ladyfinger fireworks so that the kids can blow them up.
Okay. I just won't give them a lighter because I feel like it's like enabling them if you give them the lighter. So.
Yeah, like get an adult to blow this up for you. But you can tape it to the body in any which way, blow up some arms, some legs, the face, whatever. And just
show
have
them
the
that
parent...
scene from Toy Story. We'll put the big one on the back rocket like Buzz Lightyear. And
There you go.
Send it off
There
into
it
space.
is. Easy.
I love that movie. John Thomas, thank you very, very generous super chat. John says, another Schoolhouse Rock, great American melting pot. Here comes Lady Liberty, write her book of recipes. Then there's Quas the short-haired, or QAS, Quas the shot heard round the world, and the start of the revolution. I loved those. I don't remember those, to be completely honest. I mean,
I remember the melting pot one. It was a little bit
just like
too gruesome because they were actually melting people in a pot.
That's amazing. I don't remember that, but that kind of makes it awesome.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now. Yep, there they are in a melting pot that looks like America. I do like Schoolhouse Rock. They used to play it in between ABC's One Saturday Morning because I would watch shows like Pepper Ann. I would watch shows like Disney's Doug. And yes, I'm making the difference or the
Because Nickelodeon's Doug was different, yeah.
and it was better.
Yes, it
in
was.
every way. Now you're singing it so close, we might get a copyright strike.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
it was an a cappella song.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That song though from the Beats, Killer Tofu. That song
Oh,
is
right.
pretty awesome.
Yes, I remember that.
I heard that the other week on a short, and I was like, hold on, I gotta look up Killer Tofu, and I listened to the whole song.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we had some awesome stuff. Oh, I forgot to get the Uncle Ben button. Sorry. Here you go.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Uncle Ben.
Damn. Poor Toby.
Never gets old. You know, Hasbro, you watch this channel because I know you guys do for the toy videos, but could you please make an Uncle Ben action figure? You made Aunt May last year. I bought her. Can I get Uncle Ben?
Yeah.
I know it's just an old man, but you know, give him that smile.
Was
Maybe
it
include a
actual
bullet
Aunt
wound.
May or MCU Aunt May?
It was Spider-Man the Animated Series Old Lady
Okay.
Aunt May.
Oh,
Acceptable.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I accept this.
It was a good-looking figure too. It came in a 2-pack with who did it come with? I think it was Alistair Smythe. So I don't really want him, but
That's a combo.
Pre-robotics or post-robotics?
post robotics. Or wait, no, Aunt May came with Doc Ock.
Oh, okay.
That's
They should
actually,
have Uncle Ben come in a 2-pack with just a large gun.
I agree. But the only thing they did, Andrew, is they cheaped out on Aunt May, and they basically took Agent Carter's body from the first Captain America toy,
Oh, no.
and they just plopped an Aunt May head on top of it. But
So
it's-
Aunt May's stacked?
I was going to say, isn't that Haley Atwell? Aunt May? So they just made Marissa Tomei.
well, here I'm gonna. It's clearly an old.
Haley
lady.
Atwell's way prettier than Marissa Tomei. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know if I can. I don't. She's hot, but so is she. It's like you can't go
to me,
wrong.
to me, Haley Atwell is way more pretty than Marissa
I like her
Tomei.
body. I think she's a gorgeous woman, but I mean, Marissa Tomei is like an all-time.
Marissa Tomei's got some edge, which is I
She's
think,
beautiful.
alluring,
There's no
yeah.
question about that. But yeah,
Also, too, Haley Atwell's never been in a movie as good as My Cousin Vinny. So
Sadly, yeah. My cousin Vinny's brilliant.
it's so good. The Utes, the two Utes. That's my favorite Joe Pesci movie. It used to be Home Alone, and then I finally watched My Cousin Vinny, and it absolutely just blew it out of the water. Thank you, though, John Thomas. You got me gonna watch some. When I go hang out with Dion, we're gonna get a little drunk, get a little tipsy, and we're gonna watch some Schoolhouse Rock with Hillary. I'll see if they'll. Oh, you know what I'll do, folks? Because I'm going up there for New
Record
Year's.
them breaking into song if they do it. You
I will-
better,
yeah.
damn it.
I will, and I'll tweet it out. Like, this is what I do on New Year's. 369 12.
I love
Never mind, I'm
it.
not gonna sing
That's
the
amazing.
numbers. Thank you there, John Thomas. TLJ Screwjob says, regarding Gunn Superman, I hope we get a good, or back to good is good, bad is bad, and way less of this bad guy like Maleficent was misunderstood. Yeah, like deconstruction of villains and all that gray area bullshit.
This whole sympathetic villain thing, it's played out, it's old. It's something that could work, but it has been done now so frequently for so long that it needs to go away for a while.
If
If it ever comes back, it needs to be so sparingly.
Well, the thing is that the sympathetic villain flaw that's been occurring is that they're maintaining the sympathetic part all the way through to the end, where every villain has a sympathetic origin story, but has turned them evil, and now they are, they succumb to that evil, and now it's no longer them anymore. Their innocence is completely gone.
Yeah,
and because they've been trying to grab that and drag it all the way through the rest of their journey, it just doesn't feel as authentic anymore.
No, it doesn't land, because then we're supposed to believe, okay, so yeah, maybe you were treated kind of like crap when you were younger, but that really doesn't justify or make me sympathetic for you wanting to, I don't know, kill everyone.
Right.
Like it doesn't flow. It doesn't.
I mean,
matter.
the stuff I've been hearing about the Superman movie is, you clearly understand who are the bad guys, and you clearly understand the mentality as to why the superheroes are right on the edge of being bad guys, and how Superman is the type of character that keeps them away from going over the edge.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's pretty good, because of all the little tips and things that James Gunn has released, it's basically looking like it's Kingdom Come in reverse, where instead of Superman being the old character trying to get the new generation to do what's right, he's the young guy saying, like, no, this is wrong. Like, how can you be a hero if you don't allow this person to have a stand for a fair trial for the crimes that they have committed or charged with? Instead, you're just killing them. And how do you know that you're right? Because that's why we have, due process and a fair trial, is in the event that maybe we were wrong or deceived or misled or what have you.
I need Boy Scout Superman.
Yeah.
I don't have Boy Scout Superman. Sorry to people who like Ed Wood Superman.
Be great to see a Superman defeat a villain without having to break a neck.
Yeah.
And then cry about it afterwards. Ah! It's like you knew
Or
what you just
stab
did.
Doomsday with a kryptonite spear.
Right.
That is the most convoluted movie of the last decade.
And how did he
Prove me
defeat
wrong.
Steppenwolf? I can't remember. Did he just rip his head off or something? I can't.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think his head was it lasered off and then sent through that portal back to Darkseid?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Wonder
At
Woman
some-
did something with her sword. Like, it's
Maybe Wonder Woman cut his head off.
I can't
At
remember.
some point during that 4 hours of having a pineapple kicked up my ass backwards, I tuned out.
Andrew, I imagine that's painful. I've never experienced it the way you have.
No,
But
you
I
did.
will
You
say-
watched the Snyder Cut.
I guess I did, but nothing went up there. But
4 hours of a movie about the Justice League, 3 minutes of actual Henry Cavill in it.
yeah, I am hoping that we just have a coherent future with these movies.
Me too.
'Cause
That'd be great.
I'm looking forward to the merchandise, but then again, I remembered that Todd McFarlane makes the DC toys now, so I'm just going to have to skip all of those new DC figures. Maybe if the Hot Toy comes out and it's pretty cool looking, I'll get that way. Or I'll
If
get
I
that
like the
way.
movie, I'll grab the McFarlane DC Multiverse Superman figure at the very least.
I just don't like his figure construction. I just can't. Like, I got
Fair.
the Robert Pattinson Batman over on the shelf, and I have Batman Beyond, but I never took him out of the box.
Is it like
I've
too
got
many
Batman
moving
Beyond as
parts
well.
type of thing? Like too many points of articulation issues?
Lack thereof.
Or lack thereof? Really? Okay.
Yeah, and it's a weird scale, and he puts rubber capes on everybody so it hinders the motion. So you'll get like a figure that can't sit down in a Batmobile, or you'll get a figure that can't really do a lot of bat poses. So you can have really nice mini statues with crappy articulation, or you could just buy his $99 statues made of plastic that don't look as good as other $99 statues. So I guess Mattel will never get it back, but I want somebody else to do it.
Not a whole lot of toy companies still around anymore to compete, sadly.
I've got both the
Hasbro.
Mattel Wally West from DC Rebirth, and I have the McFarlane Wally West from DC Rebirth. And McFarlane's looks a billion times better.
I acknowledge that all the sculpting and paintwork is better, but I don't know. I'm spoiled, even though I'm not a Hasbro enthusiast. Like, if I pick up like my favorite Marvel Legend, it feels like, I don't know, a different
enough.
figure than another figure. Like, all the X-Men look different.
Preference.
All the McFarlane figures, he's so cheap he uses the same parts over and over. It's like, why does first appearance Superman have New 52 Superman's outfit? Oh, well, we just can't reuse. We can't do different body parts. Or like, why didn't you paint the back of this figure? Price. It's like, come the fuck on, dude. You saved like 2 pennies and you couldn't put paint sprays on the back of the toy. What are you, Bandai from the 90s? Just get out of here. Like, I don't make excuses for him, but I do like his artwork, so I'll give him that. I respect him. I just don't love his toys.
Fair enough.
They have cape replacements on eBay. Well, Thunder Robots, I'll have to check that out. Maybe I'll rip off my Robert Pattinson cape and replace it. Xavier de God says, what's your favorite Peter and May scene in the Raimi movies?
The yard sale one in Spider-Man 2.
I
Easy.
believe there's a hero in all of us.
You're not
That's a good
Superman, you know.
Yeah.
I do like that part.
The neighborhood, yeah, the Spider-Man 2 neighborhood boy scene where it's like, yeah, I gave the comics to him,
Henry.
Henry. Yeah.
I really like the part in Spider-Man 3 when she tells him the story about how Uncle Ben and her got married and he gives her the ring to give to Mary Jane, or she gives him the ring to give to Mary Jane. Look, Spider-Man 3 is not a good film, but that is a good scene.
That is a really good scene for sure, where she tells Peter that, you know, he has to be ready to like put MJ before himself and all of that. Like that's actually good advice there.
I also like in part 3 when she goes to him after like they split up and Mary Jane's about to get kidnapped. He's like, I heard her, Aunt May. It's like you'll get this really stupid movie, but then every once in a while they'll cut in with this really good emotional moment, and you're like, oh, this is why I like these movies. So every time Aunt May pops up in that movie, I feel like it's a pretty solid scene.
Mm-hmm.
But Xavier de God, my favorite scene in all of the Raimi films is, I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But they're great movies. I need to watch those next year. When he makes when Aunt May makes Peter take the money. I do like that part too. I mean, everybody's been there in that scene. We're like, I'm not going to take this, and they're like, hey, take this. It's offensive to me if you don't. So
Yeah.
Ruin McDickpants, I think it's meant to symbolize that Spider-Man takes place in our world, and he's a real superhero, while Superman is a fictional superhero. So I always assumed that's what that meant, especially in the trailer back in the day. You're like, oh, this is a new edgy superhero. Here we go.
Yeah.
Good times. So, guys, is there anything else you would like to say before we get out of here? It's midnight, which means it's time to hang it up so people can get to work in the morning, and we can, WCBS can get back to it too. Because, folks, I wrote like 6 script pages of Stealing Solo 2 today.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like I said, I got the outline done, but over here, well, I'm looking at the screen, you can't see it, but I'm writing the actual dialogue and stuff like that. And there's a couple exchanges where I'm like, all right, the magic is back for this one too. So
nice work. I wrote a few pages of something myself.
Ooh, nice. I was this close to going, man, I should cancel the stream and just keep writing this book. I am like, I'm in the zone right now. But no, I have other responsibilities to this wonderful audience. Folks, hit that thumbs up button. I didn't mention it enough tonight, but we need your help. We are so close to 200K. Go out there and yell out your front door, subscribe to World Class Bullshitters. And if your neighbors, call the cops, I didn't tell you to do it. But no, seriously, folks, spread the word. We're so close. We're on the precipice, but we're not close to ending the show because our audience wants us to keep on going. So Xavier to God, thank you. My favorite Peter and May scene is the $20 one. It is a good one. I mean, Rosemary Harris is still to this day my preferred Aunt May. I like classic Spider-Man.
great.
She's an old lady.
She was perfect, classic Aunt May. There's no question about that.
Sexy Aunt May is uncomfortable to me.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Even
I'm
though
not
Marissa
on board.
Tomei is the right age difference to that Peter Parker because she's in her 50s, she still looks really good for her age.
She looks wonderful. I mean, I don't think any guy in this chat outside of Andrew would be like, no, I'm not taking Marissa Tomei.
Hold on.
Oh, you're not Haley Atwell, Marissa Tomei. I don't want you. I want a different brunette from the MCU.
Now, you slow your effing roll right now, all right? I said nothing of the sort. I just said, given the choice between the two.
You take the
All right.
seasick crocodile? Sorry, it's Christmas. Come on, man.
It
You
is,
can't
no,
say that.
that's why I'm laughing. That's why I'm laughing. I appreciate the Grinch reference. I genuinely do. No, I would take Haley Atwell over Marissa Tomei, but it doesn't mean don't like Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, I mean, gun to my head, like you could marry one of them. I'd probably pick Haley Atwell because I don't know, she's British. She's got that accent. And this was before she was in Mission Impossible and kicked ass in that movie too. She looks good in it. I can't like
Yeah, she
bust
does.
your balls over it. She's a good-looking woman. I understand why Captain America went back through time for her.
Right?
Yes.
It'd be like I don't know why like Tobey Maguire almost dies over Kirsten Dunst. But
I don't either.
I'd
like,
let her die at the bridge. Like, oh shit.
See,
Ray
if it
Goblin
was
got her.
Nikki Cox, who child actor, grew up to be very voluptuous and also really smart, you could believe it because she is gorgeous. Also pretty close in age, I think, to Tobey Maguire too. If memory serves. But
Wasn't
yeah,
she in was it Unhappily Ever After?
Unhappily
or
Ever
whatever?
After, which is the another network's take on trying to compete with Married with Children. Bobcat Goldthwait was doing the voice of a puppet,
Bunny?
the
That
bunny.
was
Yeah,
such a weird
yeah, Nikki
concept.
could have played NMJ better than, or at least visually better than
you would believe that
Kristen.
Tobey Maguire would go to the ends of the earth to keep her alive.
Yeah,
as well.
not cutesy
But with-
Kirsten Dunst, who was a
I
good
mean,
actress, but
The irony is that, and I mean, unfortunately, sadly, you get this information in the Black Widow film is when Captain America goes back in time, he doesn't hang up his shield. He's still Captain America. He's just covertly Captain America because he fights the Red Guardian in the 80s.
mhm.
And people are like, no, how could he? He was frozen. He's like, but I did. It's like he knows the Red Guardian doesn't know all the details, but he knows one thing for sure.
Yeah,
Steve Rogers was still around and operating. And we also know that Peggy Carter was still around in the late 80s because we got that flashback from Ant-Man, the first
Yeah.
Ant-Man thing. So you're like, oh, there's another story there. And it's like, if you want to do really good Captain America films, period pieces of Steve Rogers in the 60s going on missions that he knows he has to go on because in his understanding of what happened in the future, he's like, a disaster did not happen here. And the only
Mhm.
way it's not going to happen is if I go and stop it.
yeah.
And it's the whole what if game is like, is he going to pull it off or is he going to skewer the timeline? And
If it gives me more Steve Rogers Captain America and more Haley Atwell Peggy Carter,
Yeah.
okay,
I'd watch that team up movie.
sold.
yeah, and then the irony is that you find out that the children she had are really Steve Rogers and not anyone else's, and she just maintained that spy ruse up until her last day of breath because she loved Steve.
Why
Done
can't
deal.
Marvel movies be worth talking
Yeah.
about anymore?
Done deal. Easy. I'm
That-
here for it.
Exactly.
Aurora Uplinks, thank you very much. Film idea for women: a woman who falls in love with a bad man, but he's a wealthy celebrity, and she basically is in for the fame and power. Bad ending. Can we
I think
call
I've
it,
seen that before.
I feel like I've seen that
can we call it
already.
Bad romance? And we have a Lady Gaga soundtrack.
I was about to say that's a Lady Gaga song. But
It
yeah,
was-
I feel
that
like I've
song
already
was so
seen
popular.
that plot. I feel like I've seen that plot before. Whether
telling
it's
you've
in a
seen this
TV episode or in a movie. I
Is
feel
it
like
the
I've
one
seen
where
that.
Ed dresses up as a man from space?
I've
Thank
seen
you,
that
script.
one.
Thank you. What's a
It's a
rerun?
classic.
Thank you, though, Aurora Uplinks. I'm one day down the road, I will tell a similar story in comic book form. It's called The Long Weekend. There you go. I will do an autobiographical comic one day. Swift -1 is Red Hulk in Stealing Solo 2. I mean, technically, kinda, not really the Red Hulk, but I can't. Has anyone not read Stealing Solo here? Because I don't want to spoil the ending of the first book, but the second one picks up directly after the first one. So you,
I know
okay,
where I know who the guys go to try and finish that project.
Yeah. Well, there's a joke. You'll find out next year. I'm not going to say anything else. But no, technically the Red Hulk is not in the book. But there's a lot of other stuff in this book, Swift -1, and you'll have to find out this coming tax season. We're in production for it. I'm going to start promoting the book at the beginning of the new year. We're going to do a countdown to the crowdfunder. We're going to then do this and do that and get this book huge. But we'll get Wokebusters taken care of for everybody, and then we'll focus on that. But I am in the window of time where I have to only work on this one. So I'm excited. And showing you guys roughs means nothing. You're like, what is that circle? Oh, that's Kendo. Oh, okay. So you'll see it next year. I've learned from Twitter that people don't understand a concept until it's completely done. Like some of the stuff I've done with these books, they're like, oh, and then the color version gets so much more responses than like a black and white line art or something.
For your normies and your typical customers and fans, yeah, and that's because they just don't usually have the insight into that earlier behind the scenes stuff. Like I wish more comic books, and this is a not so subtle hint, Jeff, for your future books. I wish more comic books and graphic novels would have several pages in the back of concept art, layouts and breakdowns and things like that.
Wokebusters has that.
Excellent.
Wokebusters is what? 101 pages of story and 13 pages of extras.
Phenomenal. I love that stuff.
And here's an extra for those who geek out. It's all the extra pages are designed like the real Ghostbusters toy boxes. So they gradiate from blue to purple. I use a similar style font, and I got all that like aesthetic there. You're going to get to see proto covers. You'll get to see the painting, the pencil version, the finalized version. You get to see unused concepts. You get to see early concept of all the monsters and all that kind of stuff. I love that in these books. That's like when I picked up The Killing Joke. The Killing Joke's only 52 pages, but it's got like 20 extra pages of like Brian Bolin doing self-photography. So
yeah,
I throw that in all my books, dude, because
I love that kind of stuff.
My books are an event. They're not just a 22-page floppy. They're graphic novels. They have everything in it. Hell, I even have chapter breaks where you can read them and learn more about the world. So I go above and beyond. I can't wait for you guys to tell me what you think. And make sure you read the newspaper in Wokebusters because it'll tell you way more about the story than you can possibly imagine. But if you don't, it'll all make sense still. But thank you, Andrew, for allowing me to throw that in there for the audience. Now they're like, ooh, I can't wait. Aurora Uplinks, thank you for your generous super chat. Make it this. Film women, get why she marries him. He's charismatic. The Green Goblin actor from the first Spider-Man movie, and he's eating the scenery.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe? Well, I was going to say it could be James Franco. James Franco might play that role really well if he wasn't canceled, but
James Franco's always been kind of creepy, so. His younger brother, not so much, but I don't know how he managed to land Allison Brie.
I have wondered that a lot because Allison Brie is a fine-looking woman.
She's
even in that Macy's commercial.
Yeah.
I did nerd out, though, because the guy that's in that Macy's commercial with her is from the Goldbergs, and I was like, JTP! I, screamed at my TV like he could hear me. So if I ever see that guy in public, I swear I'm going to look at him, point, and scream out JTP, and if he says JTP back, folks are going to get tweets about that he's a cool guy. If he doesn't, I'm also a foot taller than him, and I probably scared him, so that makes sense. But, Aurora Uplinks, I do love a good drama. I do love a good sad end. Not like a sad ending, but like sometimes those endings are uncomfortable. Like I assume that Adam Driver Scarlett Johansson movie is like that, where they argue the whole time. Did you guys watch that one?
Oh, I know which one you're talking about, where they're like in the process of going through like a divorce or something like that.
Yeah.
I have not seen it. I heard of it, but I didn't watch it. It's not my normal type of flick.
When it came out, I was like, I don't need to watch this. Okay, I kind of live this, so I wasn't going to watch it. But this is, I was asked if I've seen Streets of Fire. It's on my list. I might go pick up a boutique disc version of it, and we can have some fun watching some classics. And I've seen War of the Roses with Danny DeVito. Yeah, I saw a lot of movies as a kid. My aunt and uncle would watch countless hours of HBO, and they would babysit me, and they're like, you can watch TV with us. So I saw a lot of movies growing up.
Yeah. And then you got that one from Streets of Rage? Or Streets of Fire? Streets of Fire, right. That's a funny movie. Rick Moranis. Hey, don't listen to the skirt.
Who directed this? I don't know. I'll look it up in a minute. But Willem Dafoe's just awesome. And it's got, Walter Hill directed it. And it's got, Diane Lane.
Yep.
I like Diane Lane.
And it's got this other guy who's got a distinct voice, but he's never broken out to be
Michael Paré?
Michael Paré, yeah.
Shit, Robert Townsend's in this too?
Yep.
Bill Paxton. Yeah, this is a stacked cast. And it even has the lady from The Warriors, Deborah Van Valkenburg, who I only knew from The Warriors.
Right, because she's the trouble in The Warriors.
Yeah. I don't know why Swan took her home, but whatever. I also wish in The Warriors they would have followed the book and rescued Ajax from prison, because once he gets arrested, the charisma level dies on the Warriors. But
yeah, it does. But, I mean, there's urgency to the fact that they're trying to get back to Coney Island.
You ever play that video game?
No, but I kind of want to. I mean,
the Warriors video game?
Yeah, it came out for like the Xbox 360 way back.
PS2.
Yeah, it was PS2 and original Xbox. That was a little bit of a very brief Andrew lore. So when I was working at Game Crazy and then later at GameStop, that was one of the most highly requested titles we would regularly get. Like, we would have people coming in and asking for that game.
It's a good game. It's Rockstar, and it's just kind of like a weird beat 'em up. But if you like the movie, it's like a love letter to the movie. They recreate the opening of the scene with the video game models. They got all the music. They even get most of the voice actors to come that are still alive out of retirement to voice their characters. So, yeah, Rockstar used to be the best game company in my opinion. Nowadays, it's like, oh, great, Rockstar. How are they going to screw me over on microtransactions? How long are their cutscenes going to be? How boring is their open world going to be? I get it. We're kind of spoiled with this stuff. Like GTA 5 had a great map that once you played it once or twice, you're kind of, or through it a couple times, you're just like, what am I going to do? This map is tiny. Red Dead Redemption 2 had so much in that game. It was almost like, honestly, it scared me off from playing it because it's such an undertaking to get anywhere in that game. So I just don't play it. I bought it. Fuck, I bought the deluxe edition in a steelbook, but I don't play it. Now, I will ask you guys this, since I did mention at the beginning of the show, and I hate to drop a lead or a hint at the beginning of the show and not talk about it, but today, or yesterday now, was, well, for you, Andrew, it's still today, is the 30th anniversary of the original PlayStation. Did you guys have one? And if so, what was your favorite game?
My parents got me for Christmas a PlayStation and an N64.
Ooh.
And I was kind of disappointed because I didn't want them, because we had just gotten a few months earlier a really souped up computer, and I had all the Blizzard games and stuff for it. And my dad laughed because he knew that I wouldn't be interested in it, but my mom insisted. And I was like, no, you can go return those. And my dad's like, sounds good. And then I go with him to return them. And the guy at the store was like shocked that he'd see a kid wanting to return these two awesome stations, like gaming stations, because I had a computer that could play games that were kind of outperformed what was available for PS1 and N64 at the time. But my dad was happy, and then we ended up spending that money on a bunch of like a go-kart park later, and then golf putt, like a bunch of outdoor activities for like the remaining part of the year. So it was a better trade-off for me.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You're right. I've never heard of anybody get rid of those consoles.
Yeah, neither have I. I did not own a PlayStation 1 growing up. I had friends who had one. I owned my own much later in life, and bought some of my favorite games. So top games for me would have been the easy ones are Spyro the Dragon and the Resident Evils that were on the PS1. However, my all-time favorite would be Xenogears, which is a JRPG, and the progenitor to the Xenosaga and then later Xenoblade series that are also among my favorite games of all time.
I'll have to check those out. I've heard nothing but great things about them, but I've never played any of them. I liked Siphon Filter. I enjoyed a lot of licensed games like SmackDown 2. I also enjoyed games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Metal Gear Solid, Spider-Man. All those games were great. PlayStation just was awesome. I played it for years. We got an original one. I even got a PS1 revision as a birthday present. I kept it because I thought it looked cool. And then the PS2 came out, and I kept my PS1 library, but I never really touched the system again. So, happy birthday, PlayStation. You're now 30. I'm sure your back hurts.
I know mine does.
Yeah, my knees. No, I'm feeling okay. So, guys, let's get out of here. It's been a fun night. We have lots of great games like Metal Gear Solid and Twisted Metal from Chuck E. Cheese, Ridge Racer, all these things. I think you're talking about Mystery Men, Casanova Frankenstein, or Frankenstein, whatever he's called in that movie, Jeffrey Rush.
Yeah, it's Young Frankenstein.
That's a great movie.
It's one of the best comedies out there.
Yeah. One day we'll do a debate, that versus Blazing Saddles versus the producers. And then I'll sneak in Spaceballs.
I mean, Young Frankenstein has way more jokes in it than Blazing Saddles, but Blazing Saddles has this comedy that goes right off the rails that doesn't exist in Young Frankenstein. The producers is a bit more subtle.
Mhm.
And then everything that came after Young Frankenstein is mostly Mel Brooks taking those original jokes and reworking them for Spaceballs and Robin Hood Men in Tights and Dracula Dead and Loving It and so forth.
Yeah, I never realized how much Robin Hood Men in Tights was like Spaceballs until I watched it maybe 10 years ago, and I went, wait a second, this feels very similar.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is that Mel Brooks is a great comedic producer, but he's not a great comedic writer. And Gene Wilder was the funnier comedic writer and actor, because Gene Wilder wrote Young Frankenstein, and all the jokes that you can see being derivatives from that movie that Mel Brooks used later are Gene Wilder jokes. Like Walk This Way, that's a Gene Wilder joke. It's one of the most prominent ones. And then the Destiny, no escaping that for me thing that the fighting in your nightmare stuff, like that's Gene Wilder. So, but Mel Brooks, he knows how to put some good people together. I was so disappointed with History of the World Part 2, the Hulu series he did. I think it was Hulu, or maybe it was Disney Plus.
I turned it off.
It was
Now
horrible.
it's the same.
And unfortunately, you got Josh Gad doing the sequel to Spaceballs.
I was at a Big Boy, and I was walking out of a grocery store, and I said something to one of my friends about that, and the guy goes, "Are you serious? They're making a Spaceballs too?" And I was like, "Yeah," and I explained it to him. He goes, "That sounds great." I'm like, "All right, pal." All right,
Well,
I just walked away.
it would be great if Josh Gad was playing Barf's kid, but it looks like he might be playing the kid of Lone Star. And I'm like, no, Josh, no.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
We'll find out in 2 years, folks. But I can guarantee you, you'll get more chuckles out of Stealing Solo, because it's been called Laugh Out Loud Funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. So do with that what you will. But folks, third time's the charm. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next time with more. Join me on Thursday at 8:30 p.m. for another episode of WCBS, the epitome of pop culture, and be back here next Tuesday for all of us here on the channel. But until then, folks, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.
You won! You did it! You did it! I knew you would!